What is life? It is like an egg, boiled egg. But what does that mean? Whatever you do, there is no point in it. The hero was caught and searched, and they found a relic in the things. He fought until the very end, until he was killed. Just like in the game, calls to finish off were heard. The hero asks the mother of corruption not to be angry. He needed to die here. If she's worried about the divinity inside the relic, then he hasn't taken it yet. That's why it was necessary to get rid of the tail in this way. The hero took his head and attached it back to his body. The only thing is, he lost all his money. The closer Phil got to 30, the busier and more tired he became of games. Therefore, it was necessary to compromise with reality and use cheats. Now, he can't even remember the name of the game. But Phil bought it to play as a priest of corruption. Who is a priest of corruption? Hard to get class, hard to play, lowest efficiency. But what can you do if your heart beats so fast from just one description? When all class quests were completed and the materials were gone, Phil became a priest of corruption and got into the game. The hovering hand firmly grasped the robe of the priest Marnak. That is the name of the hero in the game. This thing, whose scream sounds like a death metal singer, the goddess he worships is the mother of corruption. It all started 5 years ago, when Phil first began serving her. The only things he had after waking up in the game were the robe of the Order of Corruption and the hand of the Mother of Corruption lying on the chest. Through her, Phil felt a connection with a vast embodiment of the goddess. And thanks to that, I was able to quickly accept the fact that I was in the game. It was easy. According to the setting, the priest of corruption was a person enhanced with the help of drugs. That's why Phil became stronger, all his senses became sharper. And the body can only be killed by divine power. And it seems something happened to his brain. Previously, the hero could not stand the sight of blood. And now, he can calmly watch the most brutal scenes. The only problem is that he has no taste at all, and he really wants pork belly and kimchi. Priest Marshak came to the bureau to get an identity card. By the way, he asked if there was any work for him. The girl asked to wait a minute. They must have some tasks for the priests of the goddess of support. When Phil came to the northern city of Geese, he decided to introduce himself as a priest of the Order of Support. If a hero is in one order and pretends to be a member of another, God immediately becomes enraged and leaves a mark on him. A mark that only members of the order can see. The brand of punishment. But the mother of corruption is indulgent towards such things. The Order of Corruption is the enemy of all others. And Marnak, hated by all, is the only follower of the mother of corruption. And the girl just found something. She'll be glad to work with him. She held out a flyer for a hunt for bandits or monsters. Farmers around Gis had been disappearing more and more often lately. The one who finds and defeats the culprits will receive 30 silver for their head. If they fail to defeat them, 1 silver for information. The girl was surprised because most mercenaries asked to read for them. But it's okay because when Phil got to this world, he began to understand the local speech and writing. He also asked the girl if it was possible to receive part of the reward in advance. Later, he and a group of mercenaries set out on a journey. Phil told the mother of corruption how that girl likes to talk. She made an exception just for him. And he'll still have to pay a fine if he doesn't make it tomorrow. The mother of corruption screams to kill. Phil reassures that he has not fallen in love. And let him not be angry, stop saying such things. Suddenly, a guy turned to the hero from behind. He was sure that the priest Marnak was not from Geese. That's why I asked him to tell me about his native land. By the way, if they go along this road, the boy's village will soon appear. He hopes his mother and father are okay. I think his name is Pierre. Captain Galad's generous gift. His parents shouldn't have any problems this winter, but Pierre is still worried. What a talkative guy. Suddenly, the leader called him forward. Pierre told Phil he would be back soon. The mother of corruption continues to scream. The hero asks why she says to kill everyone again. There will be problems if they die. Phil suggested they talk about it when they got back to Gis. Her acolyte needed 29 silver right now. The hero chose to spend this winter in warmth. He thanked for understanding. It seems Phil went a bit overboard. He asked the mother of the curse not to be too offended. By the way, the hero asked how many fingers she estimated these guys at. The mother showed 2 and 3 fingers. All pretty normal. Phil can get a certain amount of divinity for the mother of corruption for killing people. 1 finger, 10 divinity, 2, 100, 3, 1,000, and so on. If the hero can collect 10,000 divinity, he will receive 1 power. And he got it when he took the relic and absorbed the divinity. There are still 12 relics left. The mother of corruption said that if Phil collected the divinity of all the relics, then any of his wishes would come true. To begin with, it will restore your sense of taste. Suddenly, Pierre came back. The captain asked him not to disturb Phil too much. He said that if he chatters from morning till night, anyone will run out of patience. Phil replied with a smile that he was fine. and there was no need to worry. And at that moment, the group began to be fired upon with arrows. The hero grabbed Pierre, threw him back and ran. However, several arrows still hit Phil's hand. He fell to the ground. It looked like bandits. The mother of corruption screamed to kill. The hero thought about pretending to be dead and taking away their divinity when he had the chance. It will be as easy as pie. There was a long, sharp sword sticking out of the ground. Phil began to slowly stand up. He grabbed the sword and decided to do something different. The hero cut one of the bandits. Their leader, standing to the side with the rest of the group, said that he would take charge of the priest and that they would deal with the rest and help. The guy grabbed the sword and attacked Phil. However, our hero blocked the blow and threw it away. He asked how many fingers his mother estimated him at. The leader of the bandits asked again what the priest was muttering and began to attack again. The mother of corruption showed 2.5, a common bandit, on the same level as the ranger who slit Phil's throat. This game is so unbalanced. The bandit struck and Phil's sword broke in half. The guy laughed, so he took the blade of frost steel. However, it seems that the bandit has no business with the priest, so he can let him go. This will still be their last job before they leave this area. So the bandit asked why they couldn't leave on a good note. Phil smiled. He had a counteroffer. He told the boys to stop being gangsters and get out right now. Then there won't be any problems. The guy was shocked, of course. Did the priest really think they would just agree and leave? At that moment, an arrow flew into Phil's head. The gang leader said that the idiots were taking too long. He already thought he was going to die. The comrades asked him not to joke like that. They saw the guy cut Marnak's sword in half. The leader replied that he had simply calculated where to hit, that he had broken down. The guys dealt with the rest, killed them all. But suddenly someone else's voice asked if it was true that everyone had been killed. Phil stood up slowly and asked why they were so surprised then. It appears this is the first time a person has been seen who survived an arrow to the head. The hero gave the bandits a chance, and the answer was an arrow shot into the head. The gang leader said to shoot the priest immediately before he did anything. However, neither bullets, nor arrows, nor anything knocked Phil off his feet. The hero turned to the mother of the curse. Her son was in trouble. He was too scared and confused to do anything. If she hadn't left him, he wouldn't have refused help. The bandits tried all kinds of attacks but eventually decided to simply retreat and run away. However, they could not pass because of an invisible wall. This is the line that the living cannot cross. A skill that must be activated to release the power of the corruption priest. The barrier prevents living enemies from escaping and hides the divinity of the corruption. Phil told his mother how glad he was to have this power. The gang leader said that there was no choice, and ordered to take out swords they would try to cut through. However, at that moment, a huge creature pressed down on him from above. A giant monster emerged from the ground, controlled by a woman's hand. The bandits begged for help and beat the walls of the barrier with all their might. They tearfully asked the priest to let them go and promised that they would never be bandits. However, Phil smiled and only told the monster to do whatever he wanted with the boys, but leave their heads intact. So a lot of corpses gathered around the hero, and the mother of corruption screamed without stopping. Probably wants Phil to collect the divinity. If he does, their bodies will disappear, and then the guild members who come to investigate might suspect something. The hero looked at poor Pierre. Phil said that he would sort everything out. The mother of the curse need not worry. But we must try to save this guy. Such an act will improve the hero's reputation. Therefore, Phil needs the help of the mother of corruption. He asked to stop Pierre's wounds. The blue-haired girl asked what happened to the man who stole the relic. The subordinate already said that he was beheaded on the spot. But there was no way to take the body. They only took the relic. The priestess told the man that he could return first, and she plans to go on a pilgrimage. He was surprised that all this was so sudden and asked if it was because of the prophecy. Exactly. Because of the prophecy and because the priestess needs to meet someone. 10 years ago, all religions were given a prophecy. The end that lies beneath the living shell will come to this world. Phil carried Pierre into town and gave him to the men. The girl with red hair said that he was free. She had already received permission from the guards. You wouldn't know our hero was that strong by his appearance. He carried the heavy Pierre the whole way. By the way, she was told that those heads in Phil's hands were the source of the problems. Instead of hanging around with them, she suggests handing everything over to the guild. Phil agrees. By the way, the girl asked if he had a place to stay overnight. How could there not be a room for him in such a big city? We'll search. So the priest has nowhere to stay. The mother of corruption nervously screamed to kill. And then the girl with red hair invited Phil to sleep at her place, if he didn't mind. The mother's screams only became louder. In the morning, the hero told his mother that she should understand why he accepted the girl's proposal. Phil had no ulterior motives towards the red-haired beauty. She simply offered to spend the night in the guild's guest room. Suddenly, the door lock turned and the girl looked into the room. She would like to let the priest rest, but one matter requires his attention. Phil got out of bed and told me not to worry. He approached the girl and asked what had happened. It turned out that the Lord wanted to see the hero. Phil asked if she knew why he needed him. Well, Captain Galad, who died during the mission, was his half-brother. After some time, Phil arrived at a luxurious palace. The butler escorted the hero to the master. Master of Gis. Treat and Philian looked closely at the hero. So he is the man who saw his brother's last moments. Phil smiled. As soon as the mother saw the Lord, she drew an X. The hero asked Tredin what it was like to live under the guise of a human, he means. Master Geese's eyes darkened. He is a demon. As long as the mother is hidden in her pocket, there is only one reason why she could draw an X when she sees the Lord. Because he is an inanimate being. And the only ones who can take the form of a human, and these are demons. They are usually much stronger than any other creatures, but they are severely limited in what they can do of their own free will. To become part of this world, they have to make contracts with other beings. This is why demons are attracted to all living things. But the gods hated the demons who gave as much as they took. Therefore, they announced to all followers and living beings that from now on, those who are called demons are evil. And so the priest's hunt for demons began. By the way, the demon follower class was quite difficult, so it was usually avoided. Phil remembered this because Demon Follower was the second class he played. Tredin sat down at the table and grinned. Galad's sacrifice, he was able to meet an important guest. Judging by how easily Marnak saw through his disguise, he is not a priest of the goddess of support. Tredin said the hero might call it creeping anticipation. Phil introduced himself as a priest serving the mother of corruption. The Lord may call him Marnak. Tredin was surprised. He thought they were destroyed. Who would have thought that he would meet the descendant of corruption? The Lord invited Marnak to sit down. There was no one else here anyway. To be honest, Tredin didn't call the hero for any particular reason. Galad, the captain of the mercenary group Phil was with. The Lord asked him to tell how he died. Tredin himself will repay for the troubles. They agreed, and the hero told everything. What an unfortunate coincidence. The younger brother was complaining that there was no work at all this winter, and the Lord gave him the task secretly, bypassing the procedure, not even realizing that this would lead to the death of his brother. This thing you call life is quite complicated. Phil pulled out a small bag of coins. The Lord did not try to tempt him with gold. These were pure intentions to find out the fate of the brother. The mother of corruption screams to kill. But she's overdoing it. The hero is not a greedy priest at all. By the way, did she know that, unlike some things, gold does not rot? Phil asks his mother not to get angry and to let him finish. It is important to listen to everything to the end. So he asked his mother if she knew anything else that would last just as long and never go bad. Phil kept up a little intrigue. And then he said that it was his love for the mother of corruption. The brush pressed against the hero's chest. For him, it will always be in first place. That is why the mother does not need to worry about anything. Later, Phil returned to the guild and met the red-haired girl again. She invited Marnak to greet the priests of the Order of Enlightenment. The hero is confused. He doesn't want to see these crazy fanatics. But everything changed dramatically after looking at them. It was worth watching as the mother noticed that one of them had a sacred relic. One man wished enlightenment to the righteous man. He did not think that he would run into a priest of support here. He is the pendulum on the scales of retribution and asked to be called Orvis. The man pointed to the giant and said that it was Cornu. And the girl next to her is Patina. Phil is happy to greet them. He introduces himself as the priest Marnak, who serves the goddess of support. The administrator suddenly said that it seemed that the priests of enlightenment would also remain here, just like Marnak. What a relief. It means Phil doesn't have to take risks now. There will be other opportunities to retrieve the relic. The only problem is that when absorbing the relic's divinity, the corruption's divinity will inevitably come out. Maybe I should try to steal it. Looks more like a bandit of corruption than a priest. Orvis said that they needed to meet with the Lord now. Therefore, I suggested that we have a proper talk another time. Phil was surprised that they needed to meet the Lord. The administrator said that their guild usually provides shelter for priests for a small fee. So that's why she invited Phil to spend the night with them yesterday. Of course, the girl asked if he really thought it was personal interest. Phil mumbled something in response when suddenly she said that, in fact, she had only one thought about him. The girl began to extend her hand to the hero. If possible, she asked for a blessing of preservation to be placed on the food so that it would not spoil so quickly. Phil shouted, asking why she couldn't say it normally. Was it necessary to whisper in her ear? The girl doesn't even know. The mother of corruption nervously screams to kill. Suddenly, someone called out to Phil, saying that the two of them seemed to be having fun. The hero asked why the priest Cornu did not go with his comrades. He said that he had no choice because of his fellow tribesmen. Many northern lords have bad ideas about Cornu. He's just being polite. Suddenly, the receptionist said that she didn't think Lord Tredden cared about such things. He says he can be a little cold, but he does a great job. The Lord knows how to separate work and personal matters. He is treated very well in Gisa. That's why the girl advised not to say anything bad about Tredona. Cornu will remember. By the way, he asked to tell something else about the Lord. The three boys talked for a while. Suddenly, Phil said that he was interested in why the priest needed to meet with the Lord. Cornu replied that in truth they were following a prophecy they had received 10 years ago. Priest Orvis suggests that the end hiding under the living shell that will come into this world may be a demon. Phil asked if they thought the Lord was a demon. Cornu replied that no, they are simply checking everyone. Orvis has the ability to detect the demon thanks to a sacred relic. This is exactly what Patina and Orvis did in the Lord's palace. Orvis struck the scales of vengeance upon the unholy monster. Cornu said that this light is Orvis's hammer of punishment. The guys are fighting the demon. Cornu and Phil need help. The hero told the priest to go forward, and he would be there soon. Administrator Aaron panics and asks the priest Marnak what is going on. He burst into her office and began nervously asking where Pierre was being treated. Phil picked Aaron up and demanded that she speak so he could find her. And after these words, they jumped out of the guild building. A giant monster head could be seen in the distance. All the city's inhabitants evacuated in panic. Aaron screamed that a monster was rampaging through the center of town. Phil said to forget about it and demanded to know where Pierre was. The girl pointed her finger and they ran into the ward. Seeing the guy, the hero breathed a sigh of relief. Lucky. Phil saved him so he can't let him die. The hero took Pierre on his shoulder, and Aaron pointed to his back, saying to hold on tighter. He won't be able to carry him in his arms. So Phil picked up the two boys and ran. Suddenly, Aaron said she knew a secret passage. She pointed to a door in the distance. That house has an exit outside the city. Before Aaron could finish saying that the door was locked, Phil had already broken it down. The girl said sheepishly that the priest Marnak was indeed very strong. Phil told her to run through the aisle if things got worse. Aaron asked in surprise about him. The hero replied that he needed to go back and ran away. In the city center, he saw Cornu's lifeless body. The priest opened his eye and recognized Marnak. The man's wounds were too deep, Phil couldn't help. The hero, in a panic, began to ask where the other priests were. Cornu replied in a weak voice that Patina was already dead. Then Phil asked how this demon could be defeated. There is another relic that was brought by the priests of the Order of Enlightenment. White Sword. Priest Orvis plunged it into the demon's head. If Phil gets to him and manages to pierce his brain, the demon must die. After these words, Cornu closed his eyes forever. The hero sat down and asked the Mother of Corruption to accept this man. He collected 100 divinities. Orvis fought the demon with all his might. While the demon was distracted by him, Phil took the chance and jumped on the monster. Now he needs to get to the sword. But at that moment, the demon made a deadly roll. The hero fell from a great height to the ground. The Mother of the Curse was worried, but he was fine. She always said that after a bad streak comes a good one. Phil turned his head to the relic next to him and said that this was a very interesting turn of events. He grabbed it for an offering and asked the Mother of Corruption to give him new power. It seems that each relic's divinity is enough to unlock one new power. Finally, everything calmed down. Phil smiled. Another seal was broken. He asks to explain to the Mother of the damage what it gave. Her hand jumped to the side and screamed. The hero is glad that his mother will be able to support him from such a distance. But isn't it a bit too little for an entire relic? Okay, it's a joke. Phil asks you not to be angry. He's just overwhelmed with joy at her growth. They're not in the best situation now, so they won't make those jokes anymore. O Mother of Corruption, Phil offers her 10,000 divinity and asks for new strength. It's clear that the hero received the text of the damage. The effect is simple but quite powerful. When the corruption text is activated, dark green metaphysical tattoos appear all over the body. They enhance physical abilities. Phil told his mother that it was a good power. It would be very useful in this situation. It looks like the hero's broken legs have healed. When the hero stood up and walked a little further, he saw the corpse of the priest Orvis. Most likely they fell off the demon at one moment. Let him rest in peace. Phil came up and told the Mother of Corruption that he was offering her this body. The demon continued to rage, destroying buildings. How strange. The demon was angered by the priests of the Order of Enlightenment. But even after their death, he is still furious. Phil thought that their kind could control themselves and not rely on instincts. The hero told his mother that he would shake it a little and that he should hold it tighter in his pocket. Phil jumped on top of the demon. The monster began to furiously wag its tail, but the hero confidently made his way towards the sword. The demon's body arched. He was about to roll again. However, this is exactly what Phil was waiting for. The same move won't work on him twice. There was a powerful explosion that knocked out windows from houses and broke walls. Phil started coughing up blood, progressing faster than he thought. When the hero uses the text of corruption, his body begins to rot from the inside. At some point, the corruption may come out, then Phil will not be able to move, so there is little time. Finally, Phil managed to grab the hilt of the sword. Priest Orvis thrust the white sword into the demon's head. If he manages to pierce the brain, the demon should die. The hero thrust his sword and commanded Lord Tredden to awaken. All the city's inhabitants saw a bright blue light in the distance. Instead of the demon, among a pile of blood and debris, lay Lord Tredden. Phil asked with a smile if he was awake. Lord Gisa said that meeting the priest Marnak was a blessing beyond his wildest dreams. Oh well, it seemed like the sword in Tredden's head was seriously suppressing his reason. Phil extended his hand and asked if the 2 gold coins had been wasted. The Lord extended his hand in return and said that they had paid for themselves with interest. Priestess Melody came with her mercenary to that very place. He is amazed every time he sees her amazing strength. But there is no body. This is exactly the place where the man cut off that priest's head. However, a lot of time passed. Monsters or animals could have stolen everything. Melody replied that it was quite possible. She thanks the man for bringing her here. And she has one more request. The priestess asked to tell the names of all the nearest cities. Through all the rubble, Phil came to Lord Gis's palace. Tredden smiled. He was waiting for the priest. The Lord said that with each meeting, Marnak looked better. Phil thanked him for the compliment. Tredden found it difficult to express in words how grateful he was to the priest Marnak, the slayer of demons. The hero asked who he killed if the demon was alive and feeling fine. The Lord said that everyone wants to live, even demons. He does not believe that the fate of any living being is to simply die. Phil replied that Tredden was right about that. When everything had calmed down, the Lord told the whole city that it was the priest Marnak who had defeated the great demon, and even saved him. And although this doesn't suit Phil, he has acquired the grand nickname Demon Slayer. Erin seemed to particularly enjoy this, so she never missed the opportunity to call Marnak that in public and attract everyone's attention. Just like now, people are constantly whispering behind his back. They say that even though he doesn't look like it, they heard that he is strong. And before that, he defeated 7 bandits single-handedly. He killed the demon. Bandits are nothing to him. It's still hard to believe. The locals are afraid that such a monster might appear here again. Tredden's wooden prostheses moving so smoothly. The Lord replied that he only does this in front of Marnak, but limps in front of others. To move so easily, he pays a high price. A very high price. Phil asked tensely what price the Lord was talking about. And then Tredden said that sooner or later the hair on his body would weaken and begin to fall like autumn leaves. If they had met the hero a few months later, Phil would have seen his bald head. Why did he imagine this? Okay, the Lord suggested talking about something else. Tredden asked if the priest had a week's free time. Phil replied that he had plenty. The Lord was delighted. He had received a request for a job and it concerned the priest Marnak. It seems they heard the story of the Demon Slayer and decided that Marnak would be the best fit for them. If Tredden understood correctly, then this concerns the sacred relics of the ancient empire. The reward will be 5 gold coins, and they pay in advance. And they also promised that if Marnak provided serious assistance in the research, then he will be able to take 1 sacred relic for himself. As Mother said, it's better to agree and see everything in person. Phil accepted the task with a smile. Long ago, there was an empire called Ancient. Its emergence ended the era of mad magicians and brought unity to the entire continent. And in our time, they are trying to recreate their technologies, so sacred relics are considered valuable objects that contain powerful abilities. In other words, most of the high-level items in this world are relics of the ancient empire. Phil came to some people and introduced himself as a priest under the protection of the goddess of support. Carmen Valtis, Marnak's employer, extended his hand. Phil was a little surprised. The guy said that the hero is not mistaken in his guesses. Anthony Valtis from the Black Wolves is his father. Oh, and to avoid any misunderstandings, he is an illegitimate son. It's hard to believe that a principled man from the Black Wolves had a child on the side. Phil thought he had decided to spend the rest of his days alone after his wife's death. It seems rumors and reality are different, but it would be wrong to delve into this topic. The hero asked to introduce the others. The mage with the robe covering his head is Tunisia. It is she who will lead them to the relics, and next to him is Sukus. As Phil can see, he is one of the one-horned tribe, a huge guy who can always be relied upon. Sukus shook his hand. He was glad to meet the Demon Slayer. That nickname always made Phil feel awkward. He asked to be called simply Marnak. Sukus replied that he saw no point in being ashamed of his great achievements. Now that the guys have introduced themselves, they can move on. Carmen says that the journey on foot will take about 2 days. He continued the conversation already on the way. 2 days passed. The team set up camp deep in the forest. Carmen asked if Marnak would be sleeping. It was better not to miss the opportunity to rest. The hero replied that he had already slept well and did not feel tired. And Carmen was a hot-blooded guy. There was still some time before sunrise. The guy asked to tell some interesting story. He is sure that a man like Marnak has met many girls on his way. But Phil answered sheepishly that in that sense he was like fresh snow covering a winter field. This was unexpected. Then Carmen asked if there were any traits that the hero found attractive in girls. Phil thinks the most important thing is that she is always on his side. Carmen agrees. When you wake up in the morning, there is nothing better than the sight of a girl sleeping peacefully next to you. But he thinks that she must have a big heart. The mother of the damage approves. The guy continued. It is obvious that the heart is in the weight. And to accommodate all this kindness, it must also be big. Carmen, with burning eyes, confessed to the priest Marnak that he loved girls with huge breasts. It's good that he knows exactly what he prefers. This will greatly help in his adventures. But if he asks Phil for advice, it's better not to talk about it with the girls themselves. Carmen said that he doesn't discuss such things with just anyone, and he started talking about it because his interlocutor was Marnak. Every time they communicate, the guy gets the feeling that he has met an old friend. Phil laughed and said that he did too. And so the night passed in conversation. The hero remembers very well that the mother of corruption asked him to choose his friends carefully. But Phil likes to communicate with this person. Tunisia said they were there. Now she would open the passage into the ruins. Getting into the ruins of an ancient empire is easy. First, you need to find the key. Then get to the coordinates indicated on it and read the words in the ancient language from the key. Then a hole will appear in the air. Insert and turn clockwise or counterclockwise. Since only magicians can read the ancient language, their role in such missions is irreplaceable. The only exception to this rule is players. That's right, Phil can read the ancient language. But naturally, this fact will remain a secret. A passage appeared and Carmen said to go in. And since Phil has almost no connections in this world, finding the key himself is too difficult. The guys have a magnificent view. Compared to other ruins that Carmen has seen, these are the best preserved. Well, he suggested we start researching. There are probably a lot of artifacts here. Who would have thought that Phil would get a chance to get into the ruins that he had only seen in pictures on the internet? The heart flutters. The team approached the gate with the ancient text. It read, "Prove that the blood of the imperial family flows through your veins." Tunisia said that they do not have the imperial blood of the ancient empire, so we must prepare for battle. The gates have opened. Inside, monsters were waiting at literally every step. The guys fought in close combat, and Tunisia exploded the ground under her feet with the help of magic. Phil chopped down the monsters with his sharp, long sword. He already thought that he had coped, but suddenly another monster attacked. The hero thought it would be better to kill him before, but at that moment an arrow had already flown into the monster's head. Phil turned around and thanked Carmen. Suddenly the boys hear Sukus and Tunisia arguing. He asks why she is throwing enemies between their lines. After all, Marnak or he could have been wounded. Tunisia coldly replied that this was the fastest way to get rid of the enemy. And the boys killed everyone anyway. It would have been easier if Sukus had stopped complaining. He became even more indignant at her. Carmen also asked to stop. Sukus angrily clenched his teeth and sat down on the ground. But Carmen told our hero that he definitely lives up to his nickname, Demon Killer. Phil laughed and replied that it was shameful for a priest to show such behavior. But Carmen thought that the hero had done everything right. By the way, his skill amazes Luca. The guy said that he had been practicing since childhood. I devoted all my free time to this. Suddenly, Tunisia asked when they would move on. There's still plenty of mana. Sukus asked indignantly why she continued to drag them forward. He doesn't know about the spell-chanting idiots, but they, the physically moving ones, need a break. Tunis thought the others didn't mind. If only Sukus needed a rest, then it was better to get to the end of the ruins faster than to waste time. The girl has a feeling that he just wants to pick on her. Carmen said that they would rest a little and then move on. The conversation was over. Phil feels a little out of place in this squabble. In this world, those who are called magicians are usually very stubborn and mostly fools. It's too easy to become a mage by birth. Mages are born. There are minor differences between different people. But those who are born with mana awaken when they reach a certain age. When this happens, knowledge of the ancient language fills their heads. Without any payment for it, they can learn to understand spells. The use of mana often violates the laws of this world. They are reborn as magicians. But because of the large amount of knowledge that fills their brains, they hate learning new things. As a result, most magicians become stubborn, unteachable donkeys. Often self-centered and oblivious to others, Tunisia is very similar to the mages Phil has met before, although she is clearly better brought up than them. So the guys had had enough rest, so Carmen suggested moving on. Suddenly, the door closed behind them, and a huge stone monster was afraid of the guys. Phil knew that the enemies were too weak for ruins of this level. Looks like the real fight is about to begin now. Suku's prepared to fight, but Tunisia ordered him to retreat. She approached the monster and began to chant a spell. Carmen screams that it is very dangerous. Tunisia must either finish the spell or run away. However, the girl ignored all the advice and dealt a powerful light blow to the monster. In a matter of seconds, he was right above her, and with one easy movement, he crushed Tunisia to death. Suku's froze in shock. Phil screamed at him to duck, but the boy didn't have time and also met his death. The hero asked Carmen in a serious voice if he wanted to live. The guy said yes, so Phil told him to grit his teeth and punched him in the jaw. Carmen passed out. Our hero was lucky to have a giant on his side. He told the mother of the curse that he was in a hurry. There was no time for prayers. He asked to send him right now. The magical power blinded the monster for a while. You can always rely on him. The hero collected the children's items and absorbed the divinity. Phil took Carmen on his shoulder and ran away. But it looks like it will take the assistant a long time to deal with the metal giant. The mother of corruption screamed. Phil thought so too. He offered to stop just watching and help. The hero's target is a giant made of white metal, or more precisely, a thing in his head. Blue crystal. This is the only part that is different from the rest of the body. If Phil can destroy it, something is bound to happen. The hero jumped up and threw the ball straight into the middle of the blue crystal. Phil began to thank the assistant, when suddenly the mother of corruption pointed to the side. Several more metal monsters appeared from the ceiling. The hero is shocked. How many of them are there? After some time, Carmen came to his senses. Phil told him that Sukus and Tunisia unfortunately died. There was no chance to save them. It all happened too fast. Carmen said that the key had to be activated when that metal giant fell from the ceiling. He didn't really know those guys. He met them when he hired them. But they died because of Carmen's greed. Phil reassured him. The boys were hired to do the job and fully understood the risks they were taking. The hero tells the guy not to blame himself too much. Carmen asked what this place was. Phil replied, "The room behind the black door." The guy was stunned but suddenly fell silent. Apparently, it's better not to ask since he was knocked out so as not to let him see some things. Moreover, the priest Marnak saved his life. Carmen swore by the name of Valtus that he would repay for this. Phil replied that he would wait impatiently. And he, it seems, does not refuse gifts. That is his nature. Take it while it is offered. If Carmen is feeling better, then it's time for them to move. The metal giant is still there, the hero has escaped. Phil wasn't entirely lying. After defeating the first metal giant with the help of the corruption giant, 3 more fell from the ceiling, and the hero left him as a punching bag. Phil kicked Carmen in as soon as he opened the door. He asked the giant of corruption to sort things out. The hero is sure that he is going through this. And let's hope that he won't get angry at him. It seemed like the boys were reaching the end of the ruins. There were huge gates in front of them. Phil looked at Carmen and suggested that they go inside. Entering inside, the hero was shocked. So the story from the book was not deceiving. There are 2 treasures here. Suddenly, Carmen said that he realized that he was not in a position to ask, but still. He asked to give him that necklace. The guy will definitely thank you for it. Phil asked what was so special about him. Carmen said that this necklace is called a family marker. If you drop blood and think of a specific family tree, it will then use it as an offering and show you the way to the one you are thinking about. Phil seems to have an idea what it's for. Carmen says that the priest must have already figured out his plan. The boy is trying to find his mother, whom he has not seen since birth. Then Phil asked with a smile if the guy would mind giving him the sword. After their adventures in the ruins, the boys set up camp in the forest and sat around the fire. From now on, they will prefer to avoid pieces of metal that are larger than them. If they had delayed even 1 more second, that thing would have definitely caught up with them. Carmen even had time to think that this was how they would die. The boy took off his necklace and asked the priest Marnak to bless him. Phil smiled and happily agreed. Let the goddess of support help him. Carmen pricked his finger, dripping blood onto the necklace. The item began to emit a red aura. The guy looked at the necklace and smiled. He knew that his mother was alive. Phil is glad that the item helped the boy. Without the priest's help, Carmen wouldn't have managed, and doesn't even know how to thank him. The hero said he would gladly accept anything. The boy asked the priest Marnak to listen to one more request. Carmen would like to continue their cooperation until she finds her mother. Since Marnak was heading west anyway, they could visit the capital, where the boy could repay him with dignity. And most importantly, Carmen will pay for all the travel expenses. He has enough money. The guy seems to see right through Phil. The hero will be only too happy to agree. While Phil was lost in his greedy thoughts, Carmen waited for an answer and was a little embarrassed by this awkward silence. The hero continued to think that if he accepted the offer, the guy would definitely not think that he was greedy. Suddenly, Phil took Carmen's hand. He said that since the boy needed his help in finding his mother, he would be glad to support him on his journey. The hero came to Erin and said he was leaving. She was surprised that it was so easy after everything she had done for him. The girl is furious, she can't believe it. She asked Marnak abruptly to simply extend his hand. Things don't usually happen this quickly, but Erin made sure it was ready on time. The girl placed a silver mercenary token into the hero's hand. Erin will repeat it again. She did her best to make it faster. Do I need to explain what Marnak has to say? Phil thought it was thank you, but it was see you soon. Some kind of promise that he would come back. This is exactly what needs to be said. The hero feels sorry for Erin, but he lives the life of a vagabond. It will be a promise he cannot fulfill. Erin said that if the priest does not change his lifestyle, he will never find a girl and die alone. Phil remained silent. Then she would say it herself. Erin whispered that they would see each other soon. She suggested that they meet when they had a chance. You can bet it will happen sooner than the priest thinks? Phil asked what he meant by that. Erin snapped her mouth shut and told him he didn't need to know. Just let him remember one thing. The last thing she gives him is punishment. Some time has passed. Phil came to the Lord. It seemed the side effect had shown up much faster. Tredden laughed. Every person is born without hair anyway. It can be said that he has achieved the true form of human nature. Tredden heard that Marnak was going to the capital, so he tried to prepare something. The Lord handed over a letter of recommendation. He would like to give money, but the priest must be aware that all funds have been spent on rebuilding the city. Tredden has no extra, so I decided to give Marnak this letter. He would be able to get help from the Lord's friends if he needed it, but Tredden said they were very difficult to handle, so it was best not to use it unless absolutely necessary. Phil thanked him for the gift. The Lord said to consider it a form of gratitude from a friend. Tredden hopes that the priest Marnak will live a wonderful life because it is usually too short. So Phil and Carmen had been walking for several days. The boy said timidly that it was about the same distance to the next town, Kelton. The mother of corruption did not stop being indignant. She still doesn't seem to like Carmen, and the only reason she agreed to travel with him was because of 3.5 fingers of divinity. If Phil can absorb it, he will receive about 10,000 divinity, which is enough for a new power, with the potential to develop up to 4 fingers. Although the hero thinks that it is better to see such a cheerful person alive, Phil suddenly pulled out his new sword. Carmen asked what happened. The priest was scaring him. The hero said that the blood was very close, approaching quickly. And at that moment, they were covered with snow. The boys were attacked by a huge snow spider. The heroes immediately began to hit him. When Phil uses this sword, he must think in advance about a place where he can wash his hands. Splashes blood and flesh too much. Lord Tredden welcomed the priestess Melody to Gis. He apologized for having to receive her in such a place. The guest room was completely destroyed. The priestess said that the Lord need not worry. Tredden asked what brought her here. Such pilgrimages are quite rare for the blue flame of the torch sect. Melody handed the Lord a piece of paper and asked him to look at it. She wanted to know if Tredden had seen this man. The Lord was very surprised when he saw the drawing of the face of the priest Marnak. Tredden asked why the blue flame was looking for him. Melody said it was personal reasons. The Lord apologized, but no one came to mind. He was forced to say goodbye if the priestess had no more questions. Tredden has little free time in the current state of the city. Melody smiled and walked out of the building. She doesn't seem to be looking for Marnak with good intentions. Tredden thinks it will be okay if she doesn't tell. Meanwhile, Carmen entered the bodies of the killed snow spiders. Phil asked him what he was doing. The guy said he was extracting a sac of venom from a snow spider. It contains a very strong anesthetic that can be useful in a variety of situations. You can coat the arrowheads with poison or sell them straight. Phil was surprised that Carmen knew about this. Quite strange for a young master. The guy has been on many monster hunts. There's nothing better than learning something new by doing, right? The poison sprays more than the hero thought. Phil offers to take care of it since he's already covered in it. He asked to see where the bags were. Carmen said it was only half a day's journey to Kelton. He will teach how to get them. They will collect them and go to the city. We need to quickly find a shower and wash ourselves thoroughly. After some time, the guys were tired, but they reached Kelton. The shocked guard asked how they even got here. What a strange question. Phil replied that they walked the whole way. The guard shouted that Kelton had been blocked for the last 3 days, all because of the monsters. The hero asked to tell more details. As the man said, the monster attacks became much more frequent. But if you examine the places of the attacks, you can't find any things or corpses. Even the ones that were attacked by snow spiders, Carmen said that was very strange. They usually suck the blood from their victims. After that, it is quite difficult not to leave any traces. Suddenly, another guard ran up to the boys and said that Lord Strand was asking the hero for a meeting. He will spend it in his estate. The dear man is inspired to see the priest Marnak, the demon slayer. Words cannot describe how happy he was when he learned that Marnak had come to their city. Phil said he was already aware of the monster situation. That was why the Lord had called him. The heroes have probably already noticed, but the problem is not caused by the monsters themselves. Strand said that everything was organized by followers of an evil spirit. Phil asked if the Lord thought that blocking an entire city was too much for one follower to handle. Well, if you believe the words of the priests, then at least 4 different sects are involved in this. They united to cut off Kelton from the rest of the world. No matter how much you think about it, the city is the most ordinary, nothing special. Strand doesn't understand why it all started just when he became the new lord. If his daddy were alive, he would definitely find a way out of this situation. Strand said their city had enough supplies, and the motivation of the guards is at a good level. But the siege was so sudden that before they could blink, they found themselves cut off from other cities. So Kelton needs someone who can get out there and spread the word about the situation. A group that is not afraid to die. Lord looked at Phil. The hero said that he was ready to help in this matter with all his might. After the meeting, the mother of the curse was indignant. What do you mean? I should have punched her in the face and left. That's too much. At least Phil got an item from the Flow Seekers. This kind of thing can only be found in the Western Desert area, so the hero didn't think he would come across it here. No more worrying about washing your face after using the butcher. The mother of corruption herself said that it would be better to cut if you soak it in water. In any case, isn't living life to the fullest the best option? Phil put the new plate in his inventory. The hero just wanted to say it. Strand or anything like that. The real reason Phil agreed to the Lord's offer was because he had a feeling that the main quest was coming soon. Phil came to this conclusion because 4 different sects work together. Although the term evil spirit sounds menacing, in the game it was quite common. Just a label from the main gods who consider you evil. Bonus, you become a target for the others. But there is one detail that unites all followers of evil spirits. It is very difficult to find anyone sane among them. Unlike the orders and sects of the main gods, who hunt for evil spirits, the sects that serve them very rarely unite. So there was a feeling that something might happen soon. 4 evil sects that united and surrounded the city. It's definitely not a coincidence. Phil and Carmen got on their horses and rode off on an adventure. Suddenly, spiders started attacking Carmen from behind. The time had come. Phil said he had their attention. Carmen was indignant, because even for the priest Marnak this was too dangerous. The hero replied that they would definitely be caught if they ran. The guy should understand that at such a speed they would quickly catch up. Phil called for reinforcements and said to make sure they were brought, and then fell off his horse. Asked with a smile how it was. Did he say it cool? Phil fell into a block of snow with a huge crash, and while Carmen was driving on, all the monsters began to hastily gather near the source of the noise. Phil can't believe it. He asked the mother of the curse if she finds his acting entertaining. She screamed, "Kill!" Well, the hero will take that as a compliment. Phil got out his new butcher. Time to look at the evil spirit's followers hiding in the shadows. The hero chopped up the monsters like meat. Well, if this happens every day, he'll have to drag the bathtub around with him. The mother of corruption says something, but they will discuss it later. They probably know Phil is here, but they did not even come out to greet him. The hero did not expect such terrible hospitality. Phil entered Kelton's barn. He was told that the wagons were empty after the attacks. It seemed that the monsters took all the goods with them. Suddenly, the hero came across someone's body, and this is the body that was dried out by snow spiders. Phil understands their joy from a delicious meal, but using the remains as decoration, some design decisions are hard to agree with. The hero asks the mother of the damage not to worry. He will not relax his vigilance. How many people does she think they managed to eat? Too many bodies in 3 days. Maybe they're breeding here? The tunnels were big before. It's like several giants live here. And Phil also has a shimmer of divinity above his head. The hero asked why they didn't come out. He had known about their presence for a long time. A huge spider jumped from the ceiling, creating a sandstorm. Phil asked the mother of corruption to draw a corruption line for him. He needs her strength. Tonight, the hero will sacrifice the head of this man-eating spider to her. The white giant of corruption has appeared. The spider is twice its size. Phil needs to find a way to help him. The hero began to chop the spider's limbs with his sword. He feels the energy concentrated inside the Spider Queen's body, and therefore he tries not to damage it. Yes, she must have a weak spot. Phil cut the Spider Queen in half. It is clear that in order to obtain divinity, all paws must be cut off. Phil told the giant to run straight towards the spider and he would help. The giant helper must make sure that the spider does not move. The white monster grabbed the spider's paws. Even though it's big, a spider is still a spider. Phil will simply cut through the thinnest part of his body. The hero made many blows with his sword. The white monster held the spider in place with all his might. As Phil quickly approached, the assistant of corruption growled. The hero apologized for abandoning the monster with the golems. Finally, an entity began to emerge from the spider's mouth. Numerous curses and screams could be heard from it. Phil knew there was someone inside. The girl sent him to hell. Who the hell is he to ruin her plans? She asked if he was another follower of the evil spirit. The hero doesn't even realize how much time it took to gain control over the queen. Phil asked with a smile why they had surrounded Kelton. The girl screamed that she would not tell when the hero struck her in the shoulder with his sword. He repeated the question. Why did they surround Kelton and what was their goal? The girl continued to scream and moan in pain. However, she will not say even on the threshold of death. And what will the hero do then? Okay, Phil didn't think and just pierced her body. And then he absorbed 1,000 divinities from her. I wonder how many followers I'll have to ask to find out the truth. The mother of corruption thinks that the third will answer. Then Phil bets on the fourth. The hero returned to Kelton, but they had outplayed us. The city was engulfed in flames. Strand's room. They said that the pig jumped much better than they thought. Lord or what he is, his precious time was wasted by the bastards who tried to protect him. The guy asked what was wrong with the incarnation. The girl answered, unstable. It is not so easy to collect the divinity of living beings. Besides, even though they weren't fully prepared, they still lost a couple of rats because of someone. Not only did the plan have to be accelerated, but now the chances of success are even lower. The girl asked if they really thought she did it on purpose. She gave it her all, damn it. But those two fucking muscular monks and that idiot from the Enlightenment sect kept getting in her way. If only stupid Layla had sent them some spiders. Then this asshole archer would have been caught long ago. By the way, she still hasn't come. Is this the first time she thinks only about her fucking spiders? If Layla had brought them, she would have been able to play with the bodies around her to her heart's content. The guy said to stop. There is no point in arguing with each other. If that bastard managed to escape, soon the troops will come for the boys. And we must not forget how many years they spent to bring all this to life. Parna shouts that it wasn't just these two who did this for 3 years. And why is he in charge? She's fed up with the constant criticism. Parna let him in not because she wanted to, and she was tired of hearing screams because of one little rat. She noticed that the guy had clearly gone off the rails and asked the other one if she hadn't given it to him last night. Parna had already noticed that they had become closer lately. The girl calmly said that she would check the situation outside. She acts as if no plan would work without her. The guy asks Parna to stop. He will make sure that Layla is punished for those rats. Then Parna will keep her mouth shut. But suddenly, an unknown person burst into the room and began chopping everything around. Phil cut off that guy and Layla, and then went up to the guy. Kill the third one without asking him any questions. Mother is right. It's not a fair argument. But these people knew how to manipulate divinity and were more than capable of causing serious damage to the hero. His mother probably cares more about his safety than winning a stupid argument. Parna doesn't understand why the hell the guy is talking to himself. Phil looked at her and asked if she was a follower of an evil spirit. And then, with a smile, he asked why they surrounded Kelton. Everything is much more surprising than the hero thought. Of course, this is exactly what took 3 years. No one would waste so much time on something useless. The girl led Phil to a huge clot. This woman, Parna, started answering right after the hero asked, as if she was waiting to spill everything. The story is simple. They want to sacrifice all the inhabitants of the town to create a ball of divinity which is called incarnation. And for this they hid in the city plans for 3 years and still started 5 days earlier. Because of the whole chain of events that led to Carmen's escape. Phil got out the butcher and Parna asked in surprise what he was doing. And what did she think? Set to kill the flesh and blood monster before it awakens. Parna begs him not to do this, but it's too late. She screamed that if his life was in danger, the awakening would begin in an unstable state. The monster began to scream that it was very painful and then crawled out of the flesh and growled. Phil knows that there is a sacred relic inside him. They will awaken a new power, and this meatball will become an offering. Parna is shocked by what Phil is doing. Doesn't understand how it all works. Before she could finish speaking, the hero finished her off. This is Parna's punishment. Phil absorbed 1,000 divinities. The total is now 8,592. Besides those followers of the evil spirit, the hero managed to absorb the Lord. To unlock a new power, you need to collect 10,000. If Phil tries to chop the monster with a butcher, the wounds will quickly heal. And vice versa. If he continues to miss attacks, he will definitely lose this battle. And since it's just a ball of meat, it's hard to find weak points in it like in the Spider Queen. There is only one thing left. Run! The monster that came out of the ball was very surprised and continued to scream that it hurt. Phil is just a little short of new power. He collected each divinity crumb by crumb. We'll run away until it collects enough from the corpses of the inhabitants. The meatball screams that it hurts and starts chasing Phil. This is a game where either the monster catches him or the hero can gain new powers. Let's see who wins. Even the monster's scream radiates divinity. It's definitely a disaster. The ball hit the ground, causing it to break into pieces. Phil told the Mother of Corruption that he needed help. At the same second, a portal appeared above the monsters, and out of it came a giant assistant who pressed the meatball to the ground. But Phil knew that one giant of corruption would not be enough. The hero told the giant not to overdo it. He would be back soon. Phil needs more bodies of elite soldiers or knights. The hero returned to the building. He understands that too much time has passed. They cannot be absorbed. If I had known that this would happen, I would have absorbed divinity while looking for followers of the evil spirit. So far, 9,237 have been collected. There are still a few left. Phil runs further through the fire, hoping to collect even more divinity. And then, right in front of him, there was an explosion. The monster's tentacles reached inside the building. Phil began to fight back. And then something new appeared before the hero. It seems that fighting the corruption giant has made the meatball stronger. As the new monster took off, Phil quickly began to cut off its tentacles. The hero was about to pounce and strike. But then the monster's limbs bound him tightly. The monster grabbed Phil, lifted him up, and slammed him into the ground with great force. The hero lay on the ground without strength. But he is fine. Luck is definitely on his side. Phil asked if the Mother of the Curse remembered what the followers of the evil spirit said. Lord or not, their precious time was wasted by the bastards who tried to protect him. It seems that the place of their battle was right here. The monster appeared among the rubble of the building. Phil asked his mother to take them all. Divinity began to grow rapidly, and finally reached 10,000. The faithful son of the Mother of Corruption offers 10,000 to divinity. Phil asks to be given new power. The monster was completely confused, and suddenly all the lights went out. Now he will feel much more pain and suffering, and the damn monster will remember them forever. Phil's new power, the Pit of Corruption, corrupts all living beings that find themselves inside. Of course, this also applies to the hero. Phil can use corruption text to select body parts that will decompose first and be of no use in combat. The monster's hand fell off right before his eyes. Now let's see what happens faster. It's regeneration or decomposition. Phil mercilessly chopped the monster into pieces so that it begged him to stop. The hero told his mother that he had done it. So this is the relic that was inside, the ball, and he will become an offering. Phil asks his mother to remove another seal. Suddenly everything returned to normal. The blue sky shone again. Phil couldn't understand what had happened and where his mother was, when suddenly he saw a girl in the distance. The hero was dumbfounded. Could it really be she, the Mother of Corruption? She started to say something. Phil thought so. Does it make sense to ask why she has the body of a child? Mother should know better than him. He asked to ask a question. There is another god's divinity in this dead incarnation. Is it possible to collect it? It would be a shame if it just disappeared. The Mother of Corruption tried to do this but began to cry. Phil asked her not to strain herself if it was impossible. He spread his arms to hug. All the divinity is already mixed, so Mother cannot divide it. It's a pity, but nothing can be done. They removed her seal with the relic and collected another 10,000 divinity. Phil asked his mother to give him new strength. But how should this be understood? The hero asked why she gave him this. Mother said to use it as much as you like. But isn't it too powerful? The curse of corruption that Phil just received is a power that is very close to evil. All living creatures within a radius the size of a small town will slowly rot and decompose. It's okay to consume villains or dead people, but killing innocents to gain godhood is not something a hero would want to do. Anyway, why was this incarnation the sacred relic with the sealed divinity of the Mother of Corruption? What if it's not just a coincidence? Suddenly the Mother's divinity was used to create this being. My head hurts from such thoughts. It seems there is a more important problem now. Phil has taken too many attacks with divinity. He fell to the ground suddenly. His body had already reached its limit. Some time passed and Phil finally woke up. Carmen was glad that his friend finally opened his eyes. The hero stood up abruptly and asked in panic where his things were. Carmen asks to calm down. He will explain everything now. But Phil demanded that his things be brought immediately when he suddenly heard his mother's voice. Carmen handed his friend a woman's hand. And the hero had time to think that he had lost it. The guy felt like she was important to Phil. Others said that no one would carry such a thing around and wanted to throw it away, so Carmen took it with him. Phil's smile widened. He didn't even know how to thank him. Carmen rolled his eyes and replied that it was nothing. If it weren't for our hero's sacrifice, he would have died without ever getting out of Kelton. By the way, Phil asked where they were. It's the place where Carmen was staying, in the same city. The hero was unconscious for 10 days. Phil asked if there were any other survivors. Carmen was silent for a moment, and then he said that the only person who was alive and breathing was our hero, the priest Marnak. Priestess Melody led a group of men. She told the one who could no longer walk to come forward. The man screamed that he would no longer try to escape and begged not to kill. But Melody was merciless, and with one swing of her blade she cut the throat. And then she asked the sacred flame to burn away the sins of this man. And so she ordered everyone to move on. Having reached the city, Melody wanted to hand over these bandits to the guards. These men are the Snow Bear bandits. They all fell on their knees and begged to be put in jail. Melody told the guard that the bandits wanted it themselves. However, she was informed that Lord Kelton, who had put a reward on them, had died at the hands of the evil spirit's followers. The priestess would have to wait a couple of days to get the money. She asked what happened to the followers next. The guard said that the priest Marnak killed everyone, including the monster they summoned. He slept for 10 days after that fierce battle and woke up only this morning. It is clear that this is Marnak, the killer of the demon geese. The priest that the guard says dealt with the followers of the evil spirit. Melody asked to know if he was still in Kelton. The priestess came to the local bar and asked if people knew where the priest Marnak might be now. At that very moment, they raised their glasses to him and began shouting his name. For the city's inhabitants, the priest Marnak is a hero. Meanwhile, Carmen and Phil set off. A little earlier, Lord Tredden said something to the hero, namely, that the blue-haired priestess from the Temple of the Sacred Flame was interested in him, and she's looking for him. Phil asked if she had found out he was alive. The Lord felt like she wasn't sure. Of course, if the question is whether she will look for Marnak, then she definitely will. She does not intend to give up. Phil knows it would be madness to stay in Kelton. The hero remembers very well that this woman, among all the people he knows, is the strongest. The one whom the mother of corruption estimated at 4.5 fingers. Phil thanked Carmen for agreeing to hit the road right away. The guy said not to worry. He would rather leave as quickly as possible than continue to attract attention in the city. The hero smiled. He likes this guy. 2 weeks passed. The heroes wandered through the snowy forest. Carmen may be wrong, but he thinks he sees the Irmal family coat of arms in the distance. The family of the great lord of the southern lands, that Irmal. The seal with a white camellia is their family coat of arms. Phil asks if they should greet each other, since they've already crossed paths. But Carmen doesn't know if she should. The Lord's flag is nowhere to be seen. Most likely a distant relative or a child is coming. It's better to pass by silently. The boys were passing the carriage when suddenly Phil tensed up. He whispered in Carmen's ear that someone was tied up and locked inside the carriage. The thugs approached the heroes and said that they could have simply played dumb and passed by. A crowd of armed men surrounded the boys and attacked them. Carmen instantly shot one in the forehead. The way they swing their swords so recklessly, Phil thought they were kidnappers. There are 8 thugs left. The leader, who was driving the carriage, asked what the hell the men were doing and let them finish it already. Are a couple of people really scared? They don't have time anyway. In the end, Archer Carmen and Swordsman Phil quickly finished off all the bandits. They pulled the girl out of the carriage. She was clearly seasick and not feeling well. Carmen asked if Phil recognized the name. But as she could see, the situation was not conducive to dialogue. The hero is not sure what she was poisoned with, but he still cannot move normally. The girl's eyes are golden. She is probably the lady of the Irmal family. The girl demanded that he stop hitting her on the back, otherwise she would never stop vomiting. Finally, she stood up and thanked for saving her. She is the eldest daughter of Kaltos Smiling Irmal. Her name is Daria Irmal. If this is true, then she is a magician, a mage, and of noble birth at that. It's immediately clear how rude she will be to the heroes. Well, Carmena said not to be biased. He whispered in Phil's ear that she had a huge heart, and he agreed. Denmark interrupted their whispering and asked to know the name of the one who saved her. She looked at Phil. Judging by his appearance, he was a priest. Yes, the hero said that he serves the goddess of support. Maybe his name is Marnak. Dacia smiled and said that Marnak was a nice name. She reached out her hand and asked for his help. She still had difficulty moving. I inhaled anesthetic gas and it still hasn't worn off. Carmen extended his hand and offered his help. He introduced himself and said that he was the son of Anthony Valtus. Dacia asked warily if he really wanted to do this. If a random person sees her clinging to a member of the Black Wild Dog family, he might, by pure chance, spread the rumors to the capital. There are probably people there that the guys have to worry about. I would like to show a small gesture of attention to them. The heroes were stunned. She is a noblewoman and a mage. but she can be considerate of other people. By the way, I would like to ask Carmen to tell me exactly how Daisha ended up in this situation. She replied that she had no proof of who exactly was behind it all, but she had a feeling. No, it's obvious. The kidnapping was planned by her brother, who always despised her. Durso arranged everything, Irmel. Recently, Daisha received a marriage proposal from the Dragon Kingdom. Since she is first in line to become the head of the clan, he wanted to use this offer to get rid of her. It seems that Daisha was affected as well. People of noble birth and magicians are not welcome anywhere. The nobles hate magicians. More specifically, when it comes to noble families, they consider the awakening of a mage to be a problem. The first and most obvious reason is the traits that all mages have. It is very difficult to teach them even basic manners. They are also egocentric. Power in the hands of such people can lead to consequences that will be difficult to correct. The second reason why no one wants to give magicians a high position is the tales of old times. Even before the creation of the ancient empire, the story of the era of mad magicians was passed down from generation to generation. Most of the races of this world believed in history, so they tried not to give magicians any power. When Daisha told the heroes about her situation, that she wanted to become one of the 4 great lords of the northern state, and he wasn't going to kill his brother to get that high position, Phil was intrigued. How does she plan to make the impossible possible? Of course, if she hadn't repeated this story several times already, Daisha asked to tell honestly if the guy pays more attention to her words. Let's see. They used marriage as a pretext. Daisha suspects that they are going to sell her to the Dragon Kingdom. Phil said they were doing their best to listen to every detail, but this was the 3rd time the girl had told him about it. The hero hopes that she will understand how difficult it is to maintain her attention. And her flesh also burned during the story. Phil handed her his and told her to give him that one. Daisha was delighted and thanked him for the food. The hero said that she would do better next time. Of course, if she talks less while she cooks. After the meal, Daisha asked if she could ask the boys for help. It was obvious that she would. She wants to be taken to Beatus, which is in the Irmel family's domain. Phil thought this would happen. If the hero helps, Daisha will give him as much gold as he weighs. Phil was stunned. The High Lord's family is on another level, so generous. However, Phil's client now is Carmen. If they agree to accompany the lady, the search for his mother will have to be postponed. He even saved the hand of the mother of corruption, which could have burned to ashes. If Carmen decides to continue west, Phil will accept his offer and refuse the lady's gold. The hero can't believe it. What does his mother say? Overeat to gain weight? Mother may love gold, but is that a reason to make her son fat? Carmen clenched his fist. He understands. Once they decided to intervene, they will bear responsibility to the end. Any Valtus would have done the same. In the morning, the heroes set off on their journey and finally saw a village ahead. Daisha hopes they will have a chance to take a hot bath. The guys came to the local hotel. Carmen said that their rooms were at the end of the corridor on the 3rd floor, and he asked to prepare water for the bath. They will quickly wash up and eat together. Daisha was pleasantly surprised at dinner. They know how to cook here. At times like these, Phil wants nothing more than to regain his sense of taste. Suddenly, the guys heard the waitress screaming, asking them not to do this. The visitor harassed her and interfered with her work. A cafe employee approached the man and asked him not to create problems at their hotel. The bastard began to get indignant, asking what he had done. I just asked her to sit with them, pour something, and listen to a couple of stories. What's the big deal? Looks like there's going to be a fight. Carmen offered to help, but Phil said someone was already there. With one blow of her fist, Daisha knocked out the insolent man. His gang started to get aggressive in response, so Phil stood up and put them in their place himself. Daisha thanked for the help. Carmen asked to at least warn when friends were going to interfere. They are a team. Daisha said that even when she was little, she could not ignore injustice. Phil thought she didn't have anger management issues, but she did have issues with being overly righteous. Carmen looked through the pockets of the scumbags and threw a bag to the worker. He said this should be enough to fix the broken furniture. The man thanked for the help. It was those bandits' money anyway, so you're welcome. It was evening, time for bed. Suddenly, Phil knocked on Daki's door. Before she could open the door, he suddenly closed her mouth and plunged the knife into the wall right next to her head. From now on, she had to listen and be quiet so as not to wake Carmen. Phil asked if everything was clear. Dacia said in the evening that she cannot pass by when she sees injustice. But Phil said to go through better next time because they were still being hunted. The boys need to avoid any attention. If Dacia continues to behave like this, the hero will have no choice but to harm her and hand her over to the followers. Wouldn't that be too tragic? Phil hopes she'll have some wisdom and talk things over with them. If she understood, the hero ordered Dacia to nod slowly, which she obediently did. After that, Phil removed his hand, said goodnight and left. The hero understands that he was hasty, but it is better this way than to wait for huge problems. Ermal has an uncontrollable sense of justice. The third prince of the Dragon Kingdom, Vathis Draco, was furious that the mercenaries couldn't catch her. The man doesn't even know how to justify himself to him. He said that unexpected circumstances had arisen and that they would need more money to continue the business. Vathis was furious at what he heard. He had already given a whole mountain. The guy demanded the man to come over. And then he hit him, Hilden, the head of the eastern branch of the secret world organization, Ile, in the face. Afterwards, Vathis demanded an explanation of why the money was needed. If he started saying that the losses were too great, he was dead. Hilden knows his life is in danger if he fails to complete this task. He must live for the sake of his family waiting at home. Hilden fell to his knees and said that the priest who served the goddess of support was to blame. It's all because of Marnak. Vathis was surprised that money was needed because of some priest. But the head of the branch asked to listen to the end. Marnak is very unusual. He defeated the demon that had turned into a huge monster in Giz with just one sword. And most recently in Kelton, he destroyed a monster that was created from all the lives of the city by the followers of an evil spirit. He achieved everything single-handedly and received the nickname the Sworn Enemy of Evil Spirits. So it means that the rumored priest and the eldest son of Valtis took Dacia. Hilden told it all exactly like that. Vathis agreed to give the money, but next time the organization must cope. Hilden was glad to himself. He had succeeded, all for the sake of the family. In the evening, Phil fed his mother. A little time passed and he was already filled with regrets. He thinks he should have been more gentle. It seems Dacia could have understood him anyway. The mother asks why Phil is worried about this woman. He says she is a client. Suddenly there was a knock on the door of the room and Mother quickly hid in the hero's robe. It was Dacia who arrived. Phil invited her inside. She was surprised to see the food and asked if it was too late for dinner. The hero said he was a little hungry. Dacia asked if she could sit down. They needed to discuss something. The girl asked if the reason Marnak had warned her like that was because she was a magician. Phil replied that yes. Dacia knew it. The way the priest looked at her was a familiar sight. Most people who have been harmed by magicians, they looked at her with exactly the same look. But there was one thing for the first time. The eyes were filled with rage. But the priest's words only meant that Dacia should be more careful, because they were now companions. Most people with that look only wished her ill. Honestly, if Dacia encounters another case of injustice, he doesn't think he can simply ignore it. Now she will discuss everything with Marnak, as he wanted, since they are partners. Dacia came to tell about it, and now it's time for her to go. The girl wished the priest good night and was about to leave, but suddenly Phil called her. He said he got a little angry and was too rude. Dacia smiled. For the first time, he looked at her normally. She was very happy. The girl asked if everything was decided then. No hard feelings. Phil replied that yes, he certainly wasn't offended by her. Dacia will be looking forward to the next journey. After she left, Phil continued to feed his mother and thought that, after all, magicians are people too. He told the girl that her foolish son had come face to face with the reality he had been trying to avoid. At night, some big guys burst into the hotel asking if that bastard Marnak was here. The man ordered the bartender to drag him right now, or he would kill everyone. Of the Vathis mercenaries, Sajida thinks. Well, the capture of the Ermal family girl with silver hair and golden eyes is still okay. But what kind of priest is he? A sworn enemy of evil spirits. The guy was holding a photograph of our hero, Marnak, into Sajida's room and said that a priest had arrived, but without a woman. The guy hopes that the guys didn't attack him. Phil came in, grabbing that bulky guy from the hotel by the neck. Sajida realized that things were bad and ordered everyone to lower their weapons. The mercenaries did it reluctantly. The guy thought that he should have kept his head up while they explained the task. Now they are in big trouble. Sajida walked up to Phil, broke into a sweet smile and carefully asked if his name was Marnak. When the hero nodded, the guy asked him to let go of what he was holding in his hand. Phil threw the man to the ground and said that he needed to meet the captain of the mercenary group. The hero looked at the crowd of angry guys. Sajida hesitated, then said that he was at Marnak's service, the captain of the Red Bear. He and Phil sat down at the table to have a snack and a drink. The hero thanked him for the offer, but he is not a big fan of alcohol, and Sajida thought to appease the priest. It seems there is no choice. Phil said that the guy's colleague came to him last night, and that big guy said he wanted to meet them. It seems to be about yesterday's fight. Sajida is in a panic. He doesn't know what to do now, whether to say it directly or test the waters first. Should they report that they are looking for a girl with silver hair at the request of the organization Elik, which cursed them? The rumors about this priest are simply terrible. Even the thought of a quarrel with him is frightening. How Sajida got into trouble. Pelgvin is to blame for everything. It's all because of the bastard. Pelgvin, The nasty old man had already been informed that the priest himself had come to them. He said that this Marnak is brave. Pelgvin entered the chamber of Sajida and Phil and asked if the silver-haired girl was traveling with the priest. Yes, the vice captain was not mistaken here either. Excellent, Pelgvin said, to listen here. He demands that they give them the woman and get lost, of course, if they don't want to die. Before Pelgvin could finish speaking, Phil cut off his hand. The vice captain shouted so loudly that all the neighboring cities probably heard him. It's funny. The hero doesn't remember telling Pelgvin his name. And he came and with such confidence began to ask questions about everything. Phil demanded to know who the person was who wanted to track them down. One of the mercenaries told his comrades that Pelgvin's arm had been torn off. They all ran to Sajida's tent, shouting that the priest did not understand the situation he was in. However, before they had time to reach the tent, they saw the severed head of their comrade. Everyone is shouting for the priest to be killed when he comes out. Pelgvin mutters to Sajida to save him. Apparently, he's not going to answer questions. Then there's no point in keeping him alive. Phil was about to finish him off when Sajid blocked the sword strike. I wonder if the hero thought he would interfere. Sajida said he didn't intend to at first, but they have been with this group for 15 years now. Suddenly, numerous arrows began to fly at Phil. Sajida threw his spear, threw a veil in Marnak's face, and then told everyone to run away. But the men didn't even have time to take a step before they were already cut into pieces. As a result, Sajida was left alone with our hero. Phil knows he needs to bring to light whoever sent this chase after them. Sajida shouted to his men that Pelgvin was in the tent. He will distract the priest, and they must go and help the vice captain. With the power of the mother of corruption, Phil struck Sajida. But it was all in vain. It had been a long time since the hero had fought an opponent of such a level. Sajida ordered to shoot. Phil didn't know there was an archer there. There will be problems if the arrow pierces the joint. The entire mercenary squad fled, leaving Sajida in despair. The hero asked if they would continue. It seemed like the guy had been left alone. Sajida threw down his spear. He surrenders. He will tell everything if the priest spares his life. The guy said that he wanted to save this bastard Pelgvin and beat him half to death. But now that he's actually dead, he feels strange. Phil asked if Sajida hated him. Was he going to kill the guy if he said he did? The hero asked whether there was any point in leaving alive someone who hated him. That's true. Sajida isn't very good at such things, so it'll be hard to explain. The law of mercenaries is kill or be killed. There were times when he had to work with people who had killed his mercenaries the day before. This does not mean that Sajida was close to them, but he did not attack them with an axe either. That's why he doesn't hate Marnak. He just feels lonely. In any case, this group of mercenaries was unsuccessful from the very beginning. Phil asked what the commander would do next. Sajida replied that he had not felt lonely for 15 years, so he was a little confused. After all his life he has been engaged only in battles. He thinks that eventually he will return to this work anyway. Great! Then Phil suggested that Sajida meet with an employer who would pay a lot of money. Daisha, Marnak, and Sajita were sitting at the hotel having lunch. The hero asked what was wrong with the girl. Was there really a smell of blood left on him? No, Daisha replied that the priest had washed her very well. She felt reproach in her voice. Finally, Phil realized that she didn't like his leaving without asking. After their conversation last night, the girl hoped that they had strengthened their connection. It looks like it was a misunderstanding. Phil himself said that Daisha should discuss everything she plans to do. And immediately after that, without any discussion, the priest left them of his own free will. Suddenly, Phil asked Her Highness if she had ever killed a person. Daisha answered sheepishly that she had not. That was why the hero had gone alone. It seemed to him that they would not find a compromise in this matter, and the fight would be to the death. Daisha is indignant that they could have at least warned her. She slept well and had a good breakfast because she had no idea about anything. That was also one of the reasons why Phil went himself. He promised that he would always warn from now on. Then Daisha suggested that he forget that he had not consulted him yesterday. Suddenly, Carmen burst into the room shouting that Marnak had gone to talk to the mercenaries they had met yesterday. However, the guy suddenly calmed down when he saw his comrade sitting and smiling at the table. Carmen clearly didn't expect the priest to be back. The boy asked warily who was nearby. Phil introduced the mercenary hired by the princess. The boys shook hands. Daisha understands that Marnak trusts Sajita, so she hopes that there will be no problems between them. And Carmen is glad to meet such a strong companion. It's time for him to get back to the forge. Carmen came running in while he was choosing arrowheads. The sun is already high. The guy thinks that tomorrow they can move on early in the morning. The girl from the followers of evil spirits could not wait for them to come. And the guys were dying of boredom. Hopefully they're already heading here. If this keeps up, he might go crazy from her screams before they get here. The guy with red hair reassured me. It will be soon. He checks the location regularly, so he is sure. The girl smiled broadly. She couldn't wait for them to come here to Erotica. The guy already answered why the girl doesn't believe him. She screamed that she really believed. But if they don't come, the guy will have to die. He'll be torn to pieces. Daisha is glad that they have finally come to Erotica. She will be able to take a hot bath. Suddenly, a man approached our hero and asked if he was a priest. He asks Marnak to go to the Trumpeter of Peace because he does not listen even to the Lord. A man asks to tell the Trumpeter to stop calling the dead. The city will pay. Phil doesn't think the Trumpeter will be stopped by his words, but the guard says that our hero is a priest. He asks to at least try to talk. He and the other guards are already at their limit. Dead people walking around every night, it's too scary. Phil agreed but asked not to expect much. The man was happy. The hero told the boys that he would help the guards and catch up with them, and they could go ahead and look for shelter. Among the many priests of the most diverse gods, the Trumpeters of Peace stand out the most. Other gods choose priests to whom they will grant power. But the Trumpeters of Death and Peace on a random day and for no particular reason become random people. As a result, they gain strength. The chosen ones always choose the path of the Trumpeter of Peace, and they dedicate their lives to serving death. Why they agree is a mystery to which no one knows the answer. Trumpeters simply appear in places with a lot of corpses. They blow into silent trumpets, raising the dead who follow him like an army. Most rulers look down on this phenomenon. This is expected, but none of them try to touch the dead, led by the Trumpeter. And there is logic in this. No one wants to confront an army of the dead that can grow infinitely. Therefore, the Trumpeters of Peace live in complete solitude and appear only to hang around with the dead. It looks more like a natural phenomenon. Phil went up to the Trumpeter and said hello, but he remained silent. Then the hero continued speaking. He knows that many have already come and gone, but Marnak could not refuse the request, and he came to say what the Trumpeter had heard many times before. Isn't it time to leave this place? As the Trumpeter understands, for ordinary people the walking dead are not a pleasant sight. Or maybe there is some special reason for his presence here? Trumpeters usually don't stay in one place for long. Suddenly he pointed his finger at something behind him. The Trumpeter said that the followers of the evil spirit will bring much death to Erotica. Phil asked again. Did he really mean to say that there were followers of evil spirits there? But the Trumpeter replied that it had already begun. A bright red beam fell from the sky onto the city. No way! Phil won't let what happened in Kelton happen again. The followers won't do whatever they want. The girl screamed that he was not here. The guy promised, but he was not here. He is sure that Marnak's companions are already in the city and asked to just wait a little. He will find them soon. The girl screams for her friend to just die. Suddenly, the third one says to wait. It seems Marnak has been found. There, in the distance in front of them. Phil was stunned for a second. He didn't think he would meet him in such a place. The hero grabbed the butcher tightly, and the girl's eyes lit up more and more. Phil knows he needs to calm down, but not this time. Mother herself must understand that this bastard magician is the one who killed Phil's benefactor and himself, the one on whom the hero must take revenge. Remembering those times, the hero always had a lot of unusual concerns. Living day by day, there were times when Phil could not earn anything and went hungry. At one of these moments, in the middle of a snowstorm, the hero met his savior, a guy named Shantux, who picked up his lifeless body from the ground and carried it to safety. He was a middle-aged man, not too young, but not too old either. Shantux was a light-hearted man, but at important moments he always became serious. When Phil woke up, he didn't try to ask anything. He only said that the hero could stay with him as long as he saw fit. Shantux was a priest who served the goddess of support, and a caretaker of a cemetery on the outskirts of the city. One day, while Phil was helping him, he decided to ask why Shantux saved him. The man smiled and replied that he just wanted to help. The smile Phil saw that day held a special place in his heart. Shantux always helped those around him. He helped, and helped again. And he said that there was no need to look for special reasons for this. Phil wanted to be like him. Then there was a whole year of peaceful life until the next winter came. Phil saved a man who was unconscious and lying in the snow, just like Shantux saved him. However, this was a mistake that should not have been made. Having received the help of the guys, the damn magician gradually healed. And then, with a smile on his face, he admitted that he was serving an evil spirit. With his magic, he chopped Phil into pieces. When the hero woke up again, the hand that was too heavy to carry around, somehow she got out of the inventory and stroked his cheek. And then Phil had to face the consequences of his own actions. It was the body of Shantux, who was brutally killed by the cursed mage. Now the magician remembered Marnak as the cemetery caretaker, but he seemed to have died last time. The magician killed him with his own hands. Well, since I came to them alive, this conversation loses all meaning. By the way, this is a priest's robe. It looks like Marnak is wearing it now. I borrowed some clothes, and the magician borrowed this hand. It has proven itself very well over the past 3 years. Phil is simply furious. He can barely contain his anger. The girl ran up to him and said that she had heard how strong Marnak was, and she waited for him for so long. The hero immediately threw her away and began to fight the magician. The man said that Marnak was very different from the rumors. The magician began to charge the spell, but at that moment the hero broke his field into small pieces. Phil cut off the man's hand, when suddenly the girl whispered in his ear how much she liked him. The hero cut off her head, and she was happy. The mage's next attack is the Scales of Retribution. His spell blinded the entire city, and the explosion around was very powerful. The blast wave sent Phil falling to the ground. The divine power that the mage feels from him is clearly not the goddess of support, but the blessing on the priest's robe hides it well. It seems we have another follower of the evil spirit here. Phil demanded silence. The magician broke into a smile that hit the bull's eye. The hero told him to shut his mouth again. A giant of corruption loomed over the magician. The man is surprised by such an interesting power. Well, since his left hand is lost, he will have to take Marnak's. It will be perfect. The giant of corruption's huge fist is about to crush the mage. However, he managed to put up a shield that would reflect even such an attack. Phil promises himself that he will kill the Riverkill mage at any cost tonight. Meanwhile, the boys made their way to the castle, killing the bodies of the dead. Carmen wants to hurry, but Daisha is worried about Marnak. He is in the middle of this chaos. Sajida said that the priest was not one to die just like that. It was better to get out ourselves. Finally, the guys reached the Lord's castle through all the corpses. It seems that the residents started going crazy not because of him. Sajida told Lady Daisha that they would have to kill. Escaping the city would not be easy. They would have to make a road out of corpses. He asked if she wanted to live. You can just imagine cutting regular meat if it's too hard. Sajida shouted that he would lead and ordered them not to lag behind. Daisha smiled, grabbed her sword and began to cut down the dead. Thus, the guys began to make their way to the gate. Sajida turned around and saw not only the pack of dead, but also a giant in the distance. Surprisingly, everything is as the girl expected. She is very curious to see how far Riverkill will go. The comrade asked if it was impossible to solve everything with words, if only followers of evil spirits had gathered here. The girl screamed that it was impossible. She had waited too long for this. Phil told his giant of corruption to begin. The hero grabbed the sword, rushed towards the magician and started trying to hit him. Riverkill laughed that Marnak hadn't come up with anything else, just a sword and fists. The magician began to charge his spell to cool the priest down a little. But at that moment, Riverkill was pierced by a spear fired from somewhere behind. On closer inspection, Phil realized it was Sajida. After a successful hit, the guy again wandered towards the gate. Phil once read that revenge is always empty, but he never thought it was that empty. He didn't want anything dramatic, but this ending doesn't make any sense. Phil grew up this body of the mother of corruption. But Riverkill suddenly overflows with divine power. Is he still alive? To begin with, the hero will get his right hand back. The follower of the evil spirit shouts that they are in trouble. Everything is lost. He said that it is better to solve the problem with words. The girl asked what happened. She blinked. The guy quickly grabbed her, told her to shut up, and they ran away. He thinks that when Marnak is in this state, he will not be able to distinguish enemies from allies. Phil asked the giant to throw him forward and then come back. The girl asked to let her go, but the guy ran headlong. And at that moment, Phil appeared in front of him. He said that the guys forgot to explain what was going on here. The girl happily ran forward to tell everything. Her name is Pearly, and next to her is Ben. They are what is called the secret society of followers of the evil spirits. Liberatio. Pearly reminded me of the guys Marnak had killed earlier in Kelton. They were also part of Liberatio. This is one of the reasons why the boys were waiting for the priest here. Phil asked how many there were. Pearly said she didn't know, and neither did Ben. She came here when they said it was time to go wild. Perhaps Riverkill should have known. Liberatio sent him here on some mission, and this is what he looks like. Phil asked what their goal was. Ben decided to tell. Their goal is simple. They want to create a world where it doesn't matter which god you serve. A world without persecution. Phil sighed and asked if they really did this to this town for this reason. Ben didn't want this either. Riverkill started the problems. The boys collect some items. One of them is from Marnak, namely, a sacred relic. The bead that was inside the embodiment. Phil tightened his grip on the butcher. It seemed he had not made a mistake. They collect items that contain the power of the mother of corruption for some purpose. The hero said that the bead was destroyed. Ben was shocked. He asked not to lie, because it was impossible to break it. Well, Phil isn't lying. The wreckage was dumped somewhere in Kelton. The hero asked if that bead was the only one of its kind. Pearly screamed that there were 4 more. Mother screamed, "Kill." It seems like the owner of the sealed power is currently furious. Ben whispers to Pearlie that he shouldn't have said that. She replies that the priest is on their side and would have found out anyway. By the way, Phil asked with a smile which of the guys drove the locals crazy. Pearlie replied that it wasn't her, she couldn't do that. Ben was whining for her not to answer his questions when Phil cut off his head. Pearlie was delighted, but then the hero cut off her head too. She said that they would see each other again. Phil brought the bodies to the mother of corruption. That girl didn't die, but the hero doesn't know yet how she does it. The cause of the disaster has been eliminated, and it has become much quieter here now. Just then the boys came to Phil. They said that all the people suddenly fell to the ground and asked if Marnak did it. The hero nodded and added that Sajita's spear had been very helpful. Words cannot describe how. The guy is glad to hear it. Phil really hopes that Sajita didn't see the giant of corruption fighting for him. Okay, the hero said they had to go. Something big was about to awaken here. The boys didn't understand what he was talking about, but when they turned their heads, they saw a huge monster. Carmen was shocked. He asked if these were human bodies. Phil replied that yes, that's what he was talking about. A huge homunculus with hundreds of human limbs. Riverkill has disgusting taste. Even after death, he collected all the corpses to take this vile form. A power that suits him perfectly. Phil turned to Daisha. He understood that she did not want to cover her hands in blood. But he will definitely comfort her when they get out of here. So she needs to gather all her strength. Dacia smiled and asked how Marnak would console her. He would think about it later. First, we need to buy time to save people. Carmen asked in surprise if there would be any help. Phil replied that there would be. He is sure. Help is already here. Meanwhile, the Riverkill monster was approaching. The dead climbed onto it and began to gnaw. Daisha told Marnak that the man in the robe was coming towards them. He said that among the boys he needed someone who was strong enough to take this spear and pierce the giant's heart. Phil took the spear and asked if there was a sword. And right in his hands, the spear took the form of a sword. Then the hero asked the trumpeter if he could make a couple more swords and arrows. Weapons rained down from the sky, and the trumpeter told the hero to speak all at once. Daisha was delighted. The sword is so light, the weapon is very good, sharp, although made of bones, and even endowed with the divinity of the trumpeter of peace. Should be very effective against the undead. The trumpeter said he would stop the giant's movement for a while, and during this time the guys must dig deeper into the giant's heart. If they succeed, they can keep the weapons for themselves. After these words, the trumpeter began playing the trumpet. The dead people sitting on the monster's body melted. The giant was perplexed and began to groan in pain. The trumpeter of peace melted the bodies of people to use them to restrict the monster's movements. Isn't this worse than the actions of the followers of evil spirits? The trumpeter said that he was simply giving the empty shells peace. The weapon will tell the guys the location of the heart. He said to go forward. Phil had a few words to say, but he decided not to waste time talking. If they delay the fight any longer, something bad might happen. The giant tries to do something, but he can't even move normally. His limbs tried to grab Daisha, but they were immediately disabled by Carmen's arrows. Daisha told Phil that she and Carmen would distract the giant from below. The hero asked if Sajita could pierce the heart, and Phil will distract the head. On the way, the hero lightning fast chopped off the giant's limbs. Phil aimed for the head for a reason. According to his mother, the giant's head contains a cluster of divinity. And that face also looks like Riverkill. The hero began to quickly climb up to the monster. This time, he will definitely blow his head to pieces. Sajita has also already reached the heart. He thrust his spear and the giant began to dissolve before his eyes. Phil stood with the bead in his hands. He had finally avenged Shantux's death. It was all over, the sky was bright again. Daisha ran up to the hero and asked if he was wounded. But the hero was interested in where Sajita was. Had something really happened? Yes, he was here. He just came up. Suddenly, the boys turned to look at the trumpeter who was approaching. He looked and told Phil to come with him. Only the priest. I wonder what he wanted to talk about in private. Maybe he realized that Marnak took the bead. Or did he guess that he was a follower of an evil spirit? The trumpeter suddenly stopped and said the word, approaching. This is not the first time Phil has felt such a presence. An overwhelming sense of a higher being that is not human. Part of God is already here. The trumpeter of death and peace himself. He pointed at Phil and said, capital, and then fell to his knees. Part of God disappeared after one word. The hero asked if the trumpeter wanted to say something too. He replied that he knew nothing and did not want to know. Phil grinned. Then the hero suggested going the other way and extended his hand to the trumpeter. Phil asked if he could help clean up the mess in Erratic. The dead could come in handy. The trumpeter replied that it was not his duty to help the living. But suddenly he felt a strong pressure. The trumpeter asked how he could help. Phil asked to find all the survivors. He also asked to move the found people to the surviving buildings. Dasha, Carmen, and Sajita saw that all the dead people suddenly stood up and wandered off somewhere. By the way, Phil would be very grateful if the trumpeter would also transfer their any useful things that survived. They can burn if you just leave them. That one did it right away. And Phil asked to put out the fire. The trumpeter got angry and demanded to say everything at once. Later, they returned to the boys. The hero said that there was only the right hand, but he would leave it to the trumpeter. Thus, this unusual priest gathered all the dead and led them along. Dacia never thought she would see anyone receiving help from the trumpeter of peace. Phil replied that he was just a very kind person. Dacia realized that it was Marnak who asked him. Yes, but the hero did not think that he would listen. Dacia took the hero by the hand and thanked him. It was very useful. In the evening, Mother screamed nonstop, and Phil was in his thoughts. Perhaps the trumpeter was trying to tell him that there was a sacred relic in the capital. It turns out that he already knows that Marnak is a priest of corruption. The hero turned to his mother and asked if she remembered the god they had met today. He wondered if she knew him. But his mother replied that she didn't know him at all. Then during the day, the trumpeter said that he knew nothing and did not want to know. Apparently, Phil's identity would not be revealed. But what did it all mean then? Mother screamed sharply and threw away the bead. She complained that she could not get the divinity out of the bead. Phil said not to worry. He's sure Mom can handle it. But even if she's angry, throwing things isn't the best way to express it. She said something. The hero is grateful that his mother wants to help him, but if she doesn't throw things in different directions, no matter how upset she is, she will become 3 times more charming than usual. Mother asked if she would be more charming in Phil's eyes. He replied that he had not. But, anticipating her shock and indignation, he asked her to listen to the end. Mother is already the most charming for him. Whether it is 3 times, 100 times, this fact will not change. Phil asked her to promise not to throw things when she was angry. The patrons of the hotel bar were discussing how it seemed that the followers of evil spirits were rampaging here and there. Not only in their kingdom, they are constantly found in the Dragon Kingdom in the east, the Desert Kingdom in the west, even in the northern and southern empires. The man seemed to have heard that Kelton and Erotica had suffered recently. Their city might be in danger too. Well, yes, they weren't that far away, but there is nothing to worry about. There is one person who has sorted out those cases. They are about the savior of Erotica, the priest Marnak. Everyone has heard of him. It is only thanks to Marnak that the inhabitants can sit and drink in peace. The men clinked glasses and drank to the priest Marnak. Melody listened attentively to the entire conversation. So, the priest is now the savior of Eradiki. Damn followers of evil spirits. Hilden even convinced Lord Erotica to help kidnap the princess. But because of them, both the mercenaries and the lord died. Worthless bastards. And the damn prince of the Dragon Kingdom will be furious. But things will only get worse if Hilden does nothing. He knocked on the gate and told His Highness that it was he. The guy entered the office, where Durso was already looking at him intently. Irmel. In the forest, our heroes were attacked by a gang of robbers who demanded that they give up everything they had. But Phil quickly put everyone in their place. Of course, for Dacia, the sight was not pleasant. The hero buried the bandits and then offered them to the mother of the curse. They were able to gather a little more divinity thanks to them. Afterwards, Phil suggested going back. The boys continued on their way, when suddenly Dacia called the hero. He asked what happened. She's not trying to blame him for anything, so she asked him not to misunderstand. But Phil never spares bandits. Dacia asked to tell the reason. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to say anything. The hero understood that the girl had already asked Carmen and Sajida. Carmen replied that the bandits clearly understood that they were armed and attacked anyway. They would also attack unarmed weak people, and the guy couldn't allow that. Sajida said that he was simply carrying out his employer's will, but could try to spare the lives of more bandits if Dacia wanted. Okay, Phil said that in his case it's about the potential of people. Dacia was surprised and asked again if he really wanted to say that he believed in their rebirth. As she said, the hero believes that they can repent and live a good life. But Dacia still doesn't understand why she would kill. Phil told the princess that the first time is always the hardest. He thinks that in this situation they will not achieve repentance. It is much easier to return to the path of evil. That's why the hero killed everyone. Dacia thought for a second, and then asked if we really had the right to judge their actions. To put it another way, no god allows this. The mother of corruption screams to kill, but she gave him permission to do as he wants. Phil replied that he doesn't kill bandits for some kind of justice. It's just a choice for which he takes responsibility. If he spares evil, he will allow it to harm the innocent again and will be held responsible for their growing number of sins. It is better to cut short the life of evil immediately so that it does not repeat its misdeeds in this life. Phil chooses such responsibility. Of course, the hero has no idea when and how he will have to pay for the murders he commits. No matter how heavy the burden on his shoulders, it is a choice he made himself. To spare the evil man and let him kill the righteous man. It's a horribly disgusting experience. Yes, Phil can't be held accountable for the sins of others until the end. So it doesn't matter how much potential for correction a person has. The hero promised himself that he would never spare evil after the story with Shantux. Daisha thought for a moment, and then timidly asked Marnak to tell her what had happened to him. But again, he can keep quiet if he doesn't want to. Phil said another time, "They'll leave this conversation for later." The hero said to look away. "There's a group of traders there." Phil suggested meeting them. Sajida said that a group of this size should have a large selection of goods, and the guys could sell the equipment they took from the bandits. So, the heroes met with the chief merchant. He was amazed by such an exquisite metal. An immortal alloy that is filled with the essence of the technologies of the ancient empire. The merchant had never seen a sword that contained so much immortalium. He forgot himself for a second. Carmen heard something about immortalium. It is also called the metal of immortality. The merchant says that this is not just immortalium. The sword contains twice as much metal as he was able to collect in his 120 years of life. Very rare thing. I would buy it at any price. Phil said he had no plans to sell his butcher. Of course, the dealer would do the same. By the way, Carmen thought he had a reason for inviting them here. Oh yeah, the merchant would like to hire the guys as an escort to the capital of the northern state. They mentioned that they were moving from Eradicate. And then suddenly he shouted that this was the killer of the demon geese, the sworn enemy of the evil spirits of Kelton and the savior of Eradicate. It seems the merchant met a hero, the priest Marnak. He must be very capable. The man promises that he will pay them well if the guys agree to this job, and the conditions will be better than those of other traders. Carmen apologized and asked for some time to discuss. The merchant agreed and went to the exit. He will hope for a positive answer. That evening at the camp, Phil gave his mother a massage. Since they've taken on this task, he suggests looking for good housing once they get the money. Suddenly, the hero heard people screaming outside the window. It was a monster attack. The boys immediately left their overnight camp and began to deal with the bats. The Wanderer was about to be captured. Daisha began to charge the spell, but Marnak had already managed to kill the monster. He told the princess that it was not worth it. She could not control the power properly. Such an attack would be much more dangerous than the enemy's spear. Daisha was upset that things were so bad, but she's sure she can hit a bat that size. Yeah, but Phil said they fly. Flying enemies don't move as predictably as ground enemies. There is no guarantee that a spell that misses will not hit an ally. So it is best to hold on to this weapon for other occasions. In the morning, Phil came to the tent of the head of the merchants. He asked if the hero wanted to hide this beautiful immortalium weapon. Depends on what the merchant will answer. Then he said that he needed to show all his wisdom. Phil advised to think before speaking. The hero asked why the evil spirit's followers were attacking the man's trading organization. The merchant asked if Marnak would believe him if he said he didn't know. Phil put the sword on the table and the man panicked. Well, the glory of the priest Marnak goes before him, so he will trust. The hero put away his sword and hoped for an honest answer. The merchant asked if the priest would keep everything a secret. Phil said sure. He was a mercenary now, so he was willing to take it to the grave with him. The merchant told his subordinate to bring that thing. The man said that the followers of evil spirits wanted to take possession of the object that was given to them. The organization's task is to deliver it to the capital. It seemed that their group had already suffered serious losses after so many attacks. Phil asked why they didn't refuse the request. The chief replied that the deposit was immortalium, and they were promised more when the task was completed. To be honest, the merchant never understood the value of the item. He asked another priest, but he didn't know either. The man opened the chest, and Phil froze. This was a sacred relic with the divinity of the mother. Now it is clear why the followers of evil spirits continue to attack. How is this possible? Phil has the hand of the mother of corruption. But how do they know the location of the item? The merchant asked Marnak why he thought they were hunting him. Phil sighed and said he had no idea. Okay, now he had an idea of the situation the organization was in, so they need to discuss something else. Namely, the terms. Since the true task was hidden from the heroes, the payment needs to be changed a little. Phil wanted to double the amount the merchant had originally promised. And not just double it, but double it for everyone. The merchant was desperate, but he agreed. He asked if Marnak had ever considered choosing the profession of a merchant instead of a priest. Later, Phil praised the guys for their excellent work. To be honest, Sajida immediately noticed the traces of battle on the weapons of the traders. They had been fighting off attacks for a long time. It should have been said right away. The merchants tried to hide it. But the guys were still moving in the same direction, so they would have gotten into a fight anyway, even if they had refused the order. Moreover, Our smart priest outplayed everyone and doubled the amount. Phil replied that he was simply asking for what they deserved. Carmen clapped his hands and suggested going to bed. They would set out again tomorrow. The mother's hand came out from under her robe. Wants Phil to steal the relic right now, but it would be terrible if he gets caught. The mother of corruption replied that no body, no case. She speaks like a hired killer. But it is better not to rush into active actions until you have found out the real capabilities of that person. Mother already knows very well that this metal does not rot, and damage will not work. It is better to let the followers of evil spirits steal the item, and in the process of returning it, absorb the divinity and return it to the merchants already empty. Mother asks why Phil hid his genius. She thinks too highly of him. Phil heard the screams of attack again. Well, he had just taken a bath. Better get this over with quickly. A large monster was interrupting the frightened traders. This is a cartel, and now he's running straight towards Phil. The hero swung and cut off the horn with which he was trying to pierce him. Phil breathed a sigh of relief. The problem was solved. But suddenly something else started flying towards him. It turned out to be that persistent girl Pearly. She said with a smile that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. She thought so much about Marnak and asked him if he thought about her. Phil replied that he had forgotten all about her. Okay, it's okay. Pearly thought for both of them. The hero needs to ask her a question. The girl asked what he would do for her if she answered. Later, the boys helped Phil defeat another group of monsters. However, Carmen noticed that one of them started to run away. Phil shouted that he would sort it out and chased after the monster. The hero threw his spear accurately and pierced the creature. Phil apologized for the delay. Pearly shouts that he was late. She asked if he would now fulfill any of her wishes. However, the hero said that he was not going to. He demands to answer questions first. Phil asked how many evil spirit followers were following them. Pearly began to remember and count on her fingers, and then answered that there were 3, including her. But they continued to pretend not to notice her. Frankly, the girl thinks it's too rude. Pearly calmly tells all the information to her enemy. Phil thinks he would ignore her too if they were on the same side, but now he agrees and says that one shouldn't be so rude. Afterwards, he asked why they were attacking this group of merchants. Pearly shouted that it was because of the necklace. The followers of the evil spirits must take it from the leader of the group. Phil asked how they knew that the leader had it. Pearly doesn't know, but he does know that the man who handed him over to the Liberatio traders. It's about a secret society of evil spirits followers. Phil was surprised because they were on the same side. The hero suggested that it was an internal rift. Pearly replied that it wasn't that bad. Just a little squabble, I guess. And Phil asked what it was about. The girl was told, but she forgot. Then the hero asked what faction she was in. Pearly is neutral. She just makes things that she gets paid for and materials for. Phil asked what kind of materials. For dolls that the girl uses, of course. Pearly is a priestess who worships the shaking country, so that means all her bodies were dolls. Exactly. The girl says that Marnak had better be careful. The guys who came with her are planning to do something without her. Phil was surprised and asked why she was so kind to him. Was he seriously asking the reason for her kindness? This is different from the questions he asked before. Phil remained silent and then turned around and said that he had lost all interest. Pearly got mad and demanded to ask her faster. No, she had to answer right away. Phil said it would be better to explain what he wanted to ask of him. Pearly smiled and said she would tell him the next time they met. Then the hero cut off her head and said goodbye. The severed head smiled and said that they would see each other again. At the camp, Daisha approached Phil. He asked what had happened. The princess better rest because they don't know when the next attack will happen, and so it will. Daisha lost sight of Marnak for a while, so she asked where he had been. Phil answered without hesitation that he was following Karpal. He felt the presence of followers of evil spirits in that direction, so I looked around a bit. Daisha was afraid that the priest had run into them, but no, they had already fled. What a pity. The girl took the handkerchief and began to wipe Phil's face. He jumped back, saying that the princess's handkerchief would become dirty. Daisha looked at him in surprise, and then replied that she had taken it especially for the hero. She told him to stop walking away and started wiping his face again. After a few seconds, Daisha smiled and said it was done. Marnak would wash the rest himself. She handed him a handkerchief and then left, wishing him good night. Phil returned to the tent. Today had been a hard day. The dissatisfied mother was already standing in the room with a handkerchief in her hands. The hero said that everyone washes their own face, but she shut him up. Mother began to carefully wipe Phil's face. The next morning, a group of traders and our guys set out on their journey. Suddenly, Phil heard a strange sound. He remembered Pearly's warning. Was it an ambush? No, that sound is an avalanche. Seeing this, Phil stopped everyone, shouted at them to drop their things and run. Coming too fast, if only we could gain a little time. Phil grabbed Daisha abruptly and said that he needed her help. The avalanche is coming down too fast. There won't be enough time for everyone to escape. No one will survive for sure. With the help of the princess, people can be saved. The hero asked her to use magic on Avalanche herself. The girl was perplexed. She had been looking for a chance to use it, and now was the time. Daisha screams that it is true, but no matter what magic she uses, it will not stop the avalanche. Phil replied that she didn't need it. They would try to buy time for the people to escape. He said to gather all the mana possible and launch it towards the avalanche. But Daisha won't be able to move while it's being assembled and will shut down after use. Phil said that no matter what happened, he would protect her. The girl smiled and replied that she would try. And Marnak had better keep his promise. She would trust him. Daisha stood in the middle of the road, prepared herself, and fired a magical beam at the avalanche. She screamed for the avalanche to disappear. The mother of corruption pointed 4 fingers at Daisha. Seeing the incredible effect, Phil ran up to the princess and said that this was enough. Daisha has gone dark. Looks like we won't have to turn her off. Phil asked the mother of corruption to summon him, the giant of corruption. There is little time left. We must protect Marnak. The giant covered the hero and the princess with his body as the snow rushed down the cliff. Finally, it was all over. Phil asked the giant not to make any noise in case there were people nearby. It would be better if he got the stones that were stuck in his body. The assistant finished and returned back through the portal. Suddenly, Daisha woke up and asked if she survived. Phil said that it seemed like they had lost their group, but they were alive. The hero asked if she could move, but the girl couldn't move at all. Her mana was depleted. It would get better with time. And then suddenly Daisha said that she saw everything. Phil froze. The princess saw him summon that evil giant. The mother of corruption screams. In general, Daisha has long understood that Marnak does not serve the goddess of support. Those people don't fly around with swords at the ready. Marnak is too strong. Phil said he just trained a lot, but Daisha knows that's not the case. Marnak carries his hand with him and often talks to himself. The priest thought everything was fine, but if you watch him closely for a while, it wasn't that hard to spot the oddities. Phil justified himself by saying he was just praying like everyone else. Okay, as he says. But Daisha saw everything. Marnak shouted something about his mother and a giant with ominous energy appeared. The princess already had her suspicions, but the hero suddenly covered her mouth and asked her to allow him to warn her. They say silence is golden. Phil said Daisha didn't see anything. The hero thinks that she is loyal enough, so he asked her to keep everything a secret because he saved her life. The princess screamed that it doesn't matter. She doesn't care whether Marnak is a follower of the evil spirit or not. That's exactly what she wanted to say. He is a good man. Sometimes ruthless, but Daisha still does not worship any gods. She decided that Phil would only listen to her to the end if he was in such a devastated state. Daisha was born a mage. She has been receiving evil looks and baseless hatred all her life, so she understands the hero's situation a little. Even if he is a follower of the evil spirit, her attitude towards Marnak will not change. Of course, Daisha will keep everything a secret. Phil was silent for a few seconds, and then the mother appeared and began to beat Daisha, who was lying on the ground. The princess asks where this child came from and asks the priest to stop her. Phil asks his mother to calm down. He thinks that Daisha's words were sincere. The hero understands her feelings but wants to trust the princess, just as his mother trusted Phil. Daisha is a mage, so you can ask her for an oath. Mother made a gesture that she was watching her. The princess asked what it meant. Phil replied that his mother had advised him to be careful because she would be keeping an eye on Daisha in the future. In any case, the hero needs an oath in the ancient language. Okay. The princess sat down, recited the text, and confirmed her oath. Okay, now Phil said he can answer any questions. Daisha asked if Marnak thought she might have lied about the oath. Phil knows the ancient language, even though he is not a mage. The princess is surprised to learn such a complex language without being a magician. The hero adds that she can ask whatever she wants. Oh, Daki wanted to ask one question. Namely, what kind of girls does the priest like? Mother quickly pushed them apart and screamed. Phil said they had better move on. Daisha asked if he was going to find the relic that the followers of evil spirits were hunting for. She would help. There were corpses lying all over the forest. The followers of evil spirits said it was simple. They took the chest with the necklace. They think that the priest was buried under the snow and he froze to death. The girl had prepared quite a large avalanche. She suggested going back. But suddenly, the 3 followers of the evil spirits saw someone's figure in the distance. The head of the merchants was furious. He shouted, asking how they dared to touch his things with their dirty hands. The girl began to charge the spell, but the merchant was not going to run away. Androids. Creatures that are created in metal. Known lovers of minerals that are able to replace any part of the body with them. They are obsessed with finding rare types of metals, so they often choose the path of a merchant for this purpose. In other words, this is a species that grows stronger with money and time. They will not stop moving until the core is destroyed. The head of the merchants is furious that the followers of evil spirits dared to do this. The girl charged a shield of melted ice, but the android easily broke it. Let him not think that he will defeat him with such childish tricks. The girl was scared. She might die. The comrade asked to be patient a little longer. It is easy, of course, to say so. The girl looked at the android and screamed that he was crazy. How could you assemble an entire body of frost steel and cover it in gold? The head of the merchants began to run towards the enemies. Then, the follower of the spirit abruptly struck the ground. A black substance began to emerge from the ground, in which the android was mired. The girl praised Pelham. She will definitely kiss him when they finish. Now she summoned melted ice again to freeze the merchant. The android has gotten out again. He screams that such dirty tricks won't work on him and will kill everyone. The comrade shouts to the girl Kiruna to duck. And after that, a huge monster crawls out of the ground. He started to spray poison at the dealer and then hit him. The follower of evil spirits says that the merchant underestimated them. Did he really think that they were not prepared? They were immediately informed that the head of the trading organization was an android. He lay on the ground, exhausted. Karuna asks to tell the bug to spit more. The guy says he doesn't want to. And it's not spit, it's acid. Such cold weather is not suitable for the monster. They live in a warm climate, and it is impossible to create much acid at once in such conditions. While the followers of evil spirits were communicating, the giant of corruption was already running towards them. Kiruna tells Ludum to do something, but he panicked and replied that his insect wouldn't kill such a thing. Then the girl said to call the others. Where is that crazy Pearly? Okay, Kiruna will try to detain him, and Pelham asks to cover. The girl summoned the melted ice again, but the giant of corruption jumped. Kiruna tells the shadows to act quickly, otherwise they will surely die the same way. Meanwhile, Phil was carrying Daisha in his arms. After some time, he asked if she could move. The girl said that she would try to get up and the hero lowered her to the ground. Finally, everything is okay. Daisha asked if Marnak wanted to help the giant. She even felt a little sorry. Phil would like to, but said to look there. The android, with renewed strength, rushed at the followers of the evil spirits and began to strike with his large spear. He seems to be doing well, but the situation is unfavorable. The merchant is outnumbered. Suddenly, Phil saw that the giant was aiming at a strange place. And then, he threw the snowbat straight to Phil. Mother's hand came out from under her robe and told her to look inside. Phil removed the sacred relic from the monster's body. The giant simply smiled and looked at Marnak. The hero had collected a full 13,000 divinities. He told the mother of corruption that he was strengthening the skill that he had already unlocked, and it would be a giant of corruption. The monster was enveloped in a bright green shell, and all the mobs around it were killed. The giant of corruption acquired a new form. Karuna yells at Pelham to cast shadow faster, but the girl only managed to see how her friend was left as a wet puddle. Karuna wanted to run away, but the android grabbed her leg and held her tightly. She begs Ludum to come to her aid. However, the boy decided to simply run away. Just then, a giant's huge spear caught up with him. Karuna is left alone. If she wants to escape, this is her only chance. Before the girl could do anything, the giant grabbed her in his claw, and then he crushed it into the ground. The giant of corruption looked down at the android. However, the merchant closed his eyes completely. Phil approached the giant and asked if he could now collect divinity for him. Mother is pleasantly surprised. She didn't know that the assistant was capable of such a thing. Suddenly, Phil came over and said that she seemed to have become a little more eloquent. He asked if removing the seals made her smarter. Mother got angry and asked if Marnak thought she was stupid. He replied that of course not. The hero respects his mother very much. He asked if she understood how dear she was to him. Suddenly, Daisha asked if this was really a goddess and not the secret daughter of a priest. Mother made an obscene gesture to the princess. Phil said she was a little angry. Daisha asked for a favor. She wants to hug her mother too, such a sweet girl. The mother of corruption pressed herself against Marnak and screamed. Phil said that it was better not to and advised the princess to bring some tasty snacks and ask again. Daisha said that one day she would definitely squeeze those cheeks. Mother did not stop being indignant. Okay, she said. Phil asked if she had anything new to say. The mother of corruption thought for a moment, then smiled and looked at the hero. He knew it and asked what it was. Mother pointed at herself and shouted, "Aye!" Vadas shouted at Hilden. He gave the mercenary everything he needed, and what was the result? All the prepared guys were swept away by a damn avalanche. It's ridiculous, there are no words. The prince speaks correctly, but Hilden does not know what could have been done. As if he wanted an avalanche to come down. Vadas should have seen how much hair the man lost from stress this morning. The dumbass doesn't understand anything. The prince heard that Dacia had left the Eastern Branch area. Hilden said timidly that she had come under the jurisdiction of the main branch. Well, the prince knows they always do a good job. It was the main branch that caught Dacia the first time. Hilden asked if Vadas would go to the capital. When the prince answered that he would, the man's eyes lit up. He was glad to be free from this lizard prince and princess. From both. It's time to say goodbye. Hilden apologized for only being able to show the prince failures. Vadas replied that these words were useless and told the man to get ready. He did not understand what the prince meant. And then Vadas said that Hilden would show the way. The prince liked him more than the other locals, so let him get ready. We'll receive special treatment, we'll ride on the back of Vadas. The prince said to dress warmer. Hilden began to say that he was the head of the Eastern Branch and he could not leave this place. Vadas replied that it seemed that all the man's mistakes remained a secret to the heads of the organization. And what would happen to him if the prince told them about everything in the capital? Hilden doesn't understand how Vadas found out. The prince laughed and said to consider it a vacation. No matter how sad it was, Hilden promised his beloved and the children that he would definitely return. The merchant's camp was on the way. The android told a story about how one day a great warrior of the heavens appeared before him in shining armor. Phil said that the chief had spoken about it yesterday too. He had called it a magnificent spectacle. Indeed, the merchant had been saved by the heavenly gods. He looked so brave. Dacia is a little surprised that the android calls him the great warrior of the skies. She thinks he looks sinister. Phil replied that the merchant was rescued half dead, so he didn't care. Suddenly, a member of the chamber approached the boys and said that it seemed like it was their turn to be tested. Yes, the android apologized, but he needed to go away. The merchant thanked the heroes for their help on the road to the capital. He would thank them well. Oh, Carmen just remembered. I forgot to tell the guys something. Things can get a little chaotic at the entrance. There are no particular problems, so they don't have to be scared. Phil didn't understand what he was talking about, but as soon as the guards recognized Carmen, Valtis immediately arrested him. The guy casually told his friends that he would deal with the problem himself and return as soon as possible. A dragon landed on the ground nearby. Vatis ordered clothes to be brought. Hilden thought that the heads who ignored the branches would now get a taste of this monster themselves. The capital is right in front of them. The prince ordered to show the way. Of course, Hilden will lead the shortest way. Later, the android told the heroes that this is not uncommon for Carmen the black dog Valtis. He often creates problems. Phil asked him what he had done this time. The merchant thought it would be better to hear it from him. If the boys go to the guards and ask to meet Carmen, they will be let through. Dacia suggested buying something tasty before she saw him. She knows a few good places in the area. Phil agreed. It sounded great. Great. Then, the merchant put a bag with the promised reward on the table. 15 gold pieces per person. 60 in total. The hero sees such a large sum for the first time since entering this world. Dacia asked why Marnak was staring at the gold. She immediately realized that he had never seen so many gold coins and laughed. So it means that the priest has such a sweet side. After an awkward silence, Phil replied that he was always nice. Dacia asked if he was joking, but of course he wasn't. The hero told the merchant that they should be given a reward for returning the item. The android replied that her guys would receive it tomorrow. First, he had to go through some procedures. Okay, then the heroes will go to Carmen and see the merchant tomorrow. Sajida said to go without him. He needed to go away. On the way, Phil and Dacia bought all sorts of tasty things. They reached the building that uses guards. It looks hostile. Dacia nudged Phil in the side, sarcastically saying that it was definitely not cute. The hero replied that the princess was a little intrusive. She asked if it made him angry. But why be angry at the truth? Phil was a sweetheart. He said to go to Carmen quickly before his food gets cold. Dacia promised not to joke about Marnak's obsession with money anymore and hoped he wouldn't be upset. Inside the building, Carmen sat behind bars, and a beautiful blonde was peacefully feeding him. He was happy to see the guys. Phil said that his friend felt right at home here. Carmen laughed and said that he often ends up behind bars. The blonde added that it was not just often, but too often. She asked if the guys were traveling with Carmen. The guy warned that they might come. The girl's name is Aram Grata. Dacia and Marnak introduced themselves in response. By the way, the princess asked why Carmen was here this time. Suddenly, someone entered the room and said that he had robbed Sir Ences's vault. Valtis. He personally declared him wanted. A guy asked Carmen what he did with the key he stole. Brother said not to try to change the subject and answer the question. Phil was dumbfounded. This could be the son of the Black Wolf, vice captain of the Knights of Frost, the Queen's personal guard. White Wolf. Sethian Valtis. Brother asked again what Carmen had done with the key he had stolen from his father's vault. Carmen replied that he had already used it. Sethian was surprised. and then asked if his brother was hurt. Carmen probably knew how much her father hated thieves. And Carmen not only stole the thing, but also can't return it. Sethian reminded him that his father always said that achievements obtained by deception were worthless. The reason is not so important. Theft will not be justified. If your principles are right, everything else will be right too. Carmen recalled these words of his father. He agrees with this. However, he does not understand why these principles did not apply to his mother. Why, as soon as Carmen was born, did she have to leave the family without any reason? Carmen screamed and burst into tears. Even the rats from the alleys take responsibility for their women. Or is their father's honor even lower than that? No matter how much Carmen asked about her, he remained silent. He simply avoided the topic, like a coward. That's why the boy stole the key to find his mother with his own hands. Sethian asked him to stop and asked if it was true that his brother took the key because of this. Carmen showed the pendant and said yes. Sethian promised to talk to his father. Phil and Daisha watched this scene as if it were a TV series. What a good brother Carmen has, they seem to be close. Sethian glared at the boys and they quickly looked away. The White Wolf apologized for making them see that on their first meeting. Dealing with his brother's affairs must have been difficult. Sethian approached the girl and was surprised to recognize Princess Daisha. She said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The White Wolf asked why she was here and not in Beatus. Daisha said she was traveling a little. Sethian replied that it was not very safe for the princess to move around like that. He was sure that Sir Smiling was very worried. Father? Oh, Daki? She said not to worry, it won't happen. Aram asked how long Carmen would have to stay here. Father ordered to hold at least a month, but Sethian will talk to him today. Then Daisha asked what they would do in the capital. Phil thinks they should move on as quickly as possible, but Marnak misunderstood the princess. She did not rush him. Hearing this name, Sethian asked if this was by any chance the same Marnak, the sworn enemy of evil spirits. Phil nodded. Sethian then asked if Carmen was part of these saviors of Eradicca. Phil also answered in the affirmative. Sethian smiled and said that then the conversation with his father would go much easier. He apologized for introducing himself so late and greeted the priest Marnak. If possible, I asked to look into the Valtis residence together with Carmen. Now it was time for Sethian to go. He had some free time to visit his brother. After Sir left, Phil said that he and Carmen were so different. The guy replied that Sethian was a good person, not like him. An example to follow. Dacia said mockingly that Carmen was so easily angered by the one he wanted to imitate. The guy got out of it by saying that he just wanted to say what was on his mind. Carmen saw the package and asked if it was for him. Dacia said they bought food. They thought the guy was starving, but there was nothing to worry about. They would leave Carmen and Aram here, let them enjoy their reunion. Dacia ran up to Phil and said that she remembered a good place. She suggested going there. The hero agreed. It would be better for everyone. Carmen and Aram waved and the boys left. Judging by the words of the Trumpeter of Peace, the sacred relic must be somewhere here. But this is not the best place to get such information. Looks like we'll have to use the item Phil got from Lord Tredden. Suddenly, Dacia knocked on Phil's door and asked him to come in. Mother screamed at him to get lost. How rude. The princess was delighted. This time she would not be refused. She brought snacks from the capital's most popular bakery. Bread with custard is the most delicious. Dacia will accept hugs instead of words of gratitude. But suddenly the mother threw the package right out of the princess's hands. Phil translated her words. Mother is a creature who cannot be deceived by such things. Dacia was upset, but what can you do? Melody came to the main final of the organization, Ile, in the capital. She showed a photo of a person. The administrator asked if the girl was sure that he looked like that. If the request had not been from the priestess, he would have taken it as a joke. The question may seem rude, but the guy asked if she was looking for a man. Melody replied that he looked human, although she wasn't sure he was. Isn't it clear? The picture shows everything. The guy thought to himself that nothing was clear at all. Calm down. She is the priestess of the Blue Flame. By the way, the administrator asked what reward she was offering for the request. Melody said not to worry. She caught wanted criminals on the way here. There's money. Since she came to the main branch, she should at least give a minimum reward of 100 coins. She is a priestess of the Blue Flame after all. And then Melody put a bag on the table containing 12 gold and 33 silver coins. The guy looked at the priestess in shock. She asked if it was enough or too much. Vadis asked how far it was and why they were going in circles. The guy replied that there was very little left. Hilden understands that just a little more and the prince will boil. It is obvious that Vatis will start to take out his anger on him. The prince asked irritably what Hilden was doing. The man replied in a panic that he was doing nothing. Suddenly, Melody passed by. Hilden was enchanted. He told Vatis to look at how beautiful the lady was, but he didn't care. There are already many beauties around the prince who are begging for love, so he asked to stop. Then Hilden doesn't understand why Vadis is so obsessed with the princess. You can just choose another one, but the prince will definitely get mad if the guy asks. Finally, the worker brought his highness to Ile and told the head of the branch that he could return. Hilden knows he doesn't have much authority, but taking orders from a rank-and-file worker is too much. Suddenly, Vadis said that Hilden was coming with him. The guy replied that even if the prince asked, they could not let a branch employee in. And then he got a punch in the face from Vadis. Did he really think of sighing in front of him? The prince demanded to see his superiors. He had no time to communicate with the servants. As expected from this bastard, Hilden had good reason to believe the established order is collapsing thanks to him. The man will take the chance and check how the headquarters will react to the prince. Let's return to our heroes. Mother threw away the treats that Daisha brought. The princess was upset, told Marnak that he could keep the bread for himself and left. Phil told his mother that she was rude. There are many other ways to refuse someone. Daisha bought it especially for her. And Phil knows better than anyone that the mother of corruption he respects is elegant and noble, so she can accept her mistakes. Mother promised to apologize to Daisha next time. Phil suggested trying the bread. I'm sure it's very tasty. The mother took a bite, then snatched it from the hero's hands and jumped onto the bed. He asks not to swallow too quickly and at least chew, otherwise there will be indigestion. Daisha returned, having forgotten that she wanted to try the bread herself. And then she saw a picture of her mother gobbling up loaves one after another. The princess smiled and asked if it was tasty. Within 10 minutes, Mother was sitting on Daisha's lap, and Daisha was touching her soft hair and skin. Morning came and the boys set off. Phil could have gone himself. It seemed he had forgotten. Daisha promised that she would not reveal his secrets to anyone, she even swore. They reached the house where the demon's friend lived. Well, at least the place was marked. The old man sitting on the chair asked what the people needed in his house. Phil showed his badge, and the man immediately let them inside. Daki became interested in what the priest showed. The hero answered that this object was given by a demon with whom he had recently met. He said to use it when he wanted to meet his friend. And he sent it later because he forgot to put it in the envelope with the letter of recommendation. Daisha didn't think that demons could be so delicate and forget something. In any case, the most amazing thing is that such a place exists under the capital. Phil said he'd never even been to the city before. A countryman? But he didn't look surprised when he walked into the building. The hero of the video and more amazing places before he came to this world. Suddenly, a man in a robe appeared in front of them. Daisha wondered whether to attack him with magic if he did something strange. But Phil doesn't want to die under the rubble of the passage. The princess says to trust her, but the hero suggests another time. The guide simply silently led the boys behind him. And finally, they reached a large wooden door. The man gestured for them to go through it. Inside the room, they saw a large bed on which a woman was lying lazily. She asked what the guys wanted from her. Phil said he needed her help. The woman asked for names. The hero introduced himself as Marnak, and the girl next to him was Daisha Irmal. Upon hearing the name, she immediately grabbed Phil and asked if he was the same Marnak, known as the Demon Slayer of Geese. Daisha gritted her teeth and demanded that he be released immediately, or she will destroy this place with magic. Phil whispered fearfully that they were all going to die. The woman pointed at the girl and asked who it was. The hero answered that it was Daisha. He had already imagined her. The woman apologized and sat back down, saying it was just a joke. I think she went too far. They call her Wriggling Curiosity, and people usually call her a demon. The woman said that Marnak was not a priest of support. He replied that he served the mother of corruption. The woman could not believe that he was the son of corruption. She asked the hero to come closer. She wants to pick his brain. Phil asks if it's necessary. Not really, but she's curious. The woman said not to worry, she can't read much in this body. I'm just curious to see why Marnak is still okay. He is very different from the others. She reached out to grab the hero, but suddenly the mother appeared and pushed her away. The demon asked what the hell was that. Phil thinks he's already introduced himself. The woman said that this would definitely end badly. It seems that Marnak is in big trouble. He collects relics of the mother of corruption. The demon asked how many there are already. 4 or 5? Phil was surprised that she knew from somewhere and asked her to explain in more detail. The woman replied that she couldn't and told him to ask his mother himself. Mother says she doesn't know anything. The demon is shocked that Marnak just communicated with the goddess, personally and without consequences. Phil said they usually talk every day. Communication is important to maintain a strong relationship, so it means that the son of corruption has not gone crazy and communicates with her without any payment. And also the mother of corruption, who knows nothing. The woman asked how long ago, namely, how much time passed after the modification of the body until the moment when you, the priest of corruption, regained your sanity and began to communicate normally. The hero replied that it had been that way from the very beginning. The woman said mysteriously that putting all your eggs in one basket was not the best idea. Well, apparently the mother of corruption had no other choice. The demon said that Marnak would have to try very hard to repay his mother for everything. Phil still doesn't understand anything, but the woman continues. Marnak's situation is like walking on a tightrope. If the demon says more, those guys up there will definitely notice. Phil didn't know that the heavenly gods could notice such a thing. By the way, the woman reminded that when you want to ask a demon for help, you have to repay with something. Phil asked what she wanted, but he never expected the woman to tell him to sleep with her. Everyone stood rooted to the spot. But the demon continued, saying that they would have a little fun. She never did this to the son of corruption. After all, they are usually all psychopaths. Dacia screamed that this would not happen, and the mother of corruption grabbed the woman and began to beat her. Demon giggled. She doesn't feel the blows, such soft fists. Phil is ashamed in front of his mother, but the woman is right. Okay, the demon suggested, calming down, and said not to take everything so seriously. She was just joking. What the priest brought was enough, namely, the badge. The woman asked if the hero had been told nothing when it was given to him. Phil replied that nothing had been said. Well, it happens. A little joke adds a little fun to this life. It should be fun. Phil smiled and agreed. So, back to the request. The demon already understood that Marnak was looking for the relics of the mother of corruption and wanted to ask her for help. Well, the woman just happens to have one. Phil and Dacia were immediately inspired. Then the demon got out of bed and went to the curtains. She opened them and invited Marnak to take part in the underground arena fights. Let him try to win her. That's right, a woman has one relic. But, oops, she's already been designated as the prize for winning the arena. Now Phil knows where to look for her. He wants to take her. He needs to win. The woman returned to her bed and wished the priest good luck. Bigfoot comes out on stage. The crowd happily shouts his name. And now the presenter introduces his new opponent. And Phil jumped onto the stage in great physical shape and with a mask on his face. The spectators are amazed that a person can move like that and even thought about betting on the newcomer. Dacia went to the bookmaker and put everything on the newcomer. The priest Marnak must win at any cost. A couple of days ago, the hero asked the demon if she could secretly give the relic to them, and they would give it back immediately after taking the divinity. The woman asked not to say stupid things. The followers of evil spirits will immediately understand everything. She advised Marnak to perform in the arena. It is connected with him and his mother. The demon asked if the priest knew who the Liberatio were. It was good that he knew. The woman said that Marnak would definitely encounter Liberatio while searching for the relics, so it would be better to reduce the number of enemies in advance. Also, the heroes are now in the capital. The demon asked if the priest understood what this meant. Phil assumed that the Liberatio would not be able to use their power openly. The local priest will notice right away. Exactly. And Phil can lose but not die until the attack is filled with divine power. However, he had previously told the woman that he was not going to kill everyone just because they were followers of evil spirits. The demon didn't understand what was going on because she heard Marnak finish off a whole bunch. The hero replied that there were reasons for that. What a picky boy. So if the woman gives him a reason, he can kill them. The demon took the eye, from which the strongest demonic energy was coming, into her hand and then crushed it with her fingers. Phil was mired in scenes of torment, grief, and torture of people. The hero froze in place. After that, he asked what it was. The woman replied that it was the memories of a follower of an evil spirit. One of them will participate. Now there should be enough reasons. Phil asked warily if this was true. The woman replied that, unfortunately, it was. So, back to the present moment. The crowd is chanting Bigfoot's name in delight. It's good that Phil is allowed to wear the mask. It changes shape at his will, and the princess received a ring from the merchant that helps control magical power, but does not reduce it. The huge Bigfoot came close to the hero and told the kid to return with weapons and armor. However, Phil just confidently showed him his middle finger. Bigfoot got angry and swung his mace at the arrogant bastard who dared to laugh at him. The guy hit with great force, but the newbie dodged it. Incredibly fast. Phil gestured to his opponent to come closer, but as soon as he tried to hit, our hero deftly dodged. And then, he timed the moment and punched Bigfoot in the face. The guy was furious and swung the mace again. Sparks flew from the stage in all directions. However, Phil dodged again. The audience has never seen anything like this before. Now it is clear why the newcomer is not wearing armor. The presenter tells Bigfoot to get ready already. This only made him even more angry. Did they really think he missed because he wanted to? The guy ran at Phil, but our hero quickly darted back and grabbed Bigfoot by the head. The priest is so strong that he can lift a large man into the sky. And after they got into the air, Phil fell sharply and hit the guy on the ground. Bigfoot lay on the floor, unable to do anything. And then the Butcher Man, as the audience nicknamed Phil, began to climb the wall with his bare hands. The hero pushed off the wall, prepared his elbow, and flew down again. With this blow, he finished off his opponent. The host declared the new fighter, the Human Butcher, the winner. She approached him, said it was an exciting match, and asked him to say something. Phil grabbed the loudspeaker and screamed that he would kill them all. The crowd was delighted, especially Daisha and her mother. After the fight, Phil and the princess were walking around the city. The girl called them here quickly. They were just in time to buy this fresh and fluffy bread. Then Phil said there was no point in hurrying, but Daisha objected. He has no idea how long the line was last time. Daisha showed that someone had already started buying up fresh bread there. Phil felt like he had seen this man with red hair somewhere before. Daisha grabbed the hero by the hand and led him quickly. They'll buy more since they earned money in the arena. Phil thought it was just someone who looked like Aaron. Returning to the room, Mother began to imitate that same elbow blow from Marnak. It seems that the mother of corruption was having a lot of fun, and Daisha clapped, saying that it was all like that. She repeated it perfectly. Phil only asked his mother not to imitate him. The female demon walked in and was surprised that they decided to do something similar here. Phil apologized for the fuss. No matter, she likes funny things too. The woman may repeat herself, but the fight looked great. Very impressive. At first, she didn't expect anything from the priest, but Marnak really is wild. The hero replied that it was not like that at all. Yes, it was very impressive. The woman talked to Bigfoot. She's not sure how they did it, but from the middle of the fight on, it was all an act. As the boys were flying down, Phil told them to pretend that Bigfoot was in a lot of pain if he wanted to live. The hero replied that he hadn't planned it from the start. He and the guy were just like-minded people. Still, they put on a wonderful performance and it was a success. The public reaction was good. The woman is thinking about adding this impressive game to future fights, but the arena needs new actors. Bigfoot left, saying he wanted to become a real actor. That's why the woman offers Phil to work with her. He will quickly become a star of the arena. Marnak is grateful for the offer but is forced to refuse. And all because I have to remove all the seals from my mother. Such a disappointment for a woman. But she won't force her. However, she asked if she could use the idea of this impressive game. The hero, of course, allowed it. Phil himself repeated things he had seen in the past. However, doing it for free would be a bit wrong. If the idea takes off, the woman will generously reward the priest. And our hero will not refuse if the woman insists. Oh, and about the next fight, she asked if there was anything she could help with. Phil replied that everything would be fine. She knew that his next opponent was a follower of an evil spirit. So, the notorious head crusher entered the arena. And then his opponent, a rising star, a newcomer who lit up the arena. The crowd cheered the name of the Butcher Man, but the crowd was shocked when they saw Bigfoot's weapon in his hands. Did he kill him to take it? Before the fight began, Phil asked his opponent if his name was Gedem. The follower of the evil spirit was surprised and asked how the Butcher knew. So the presenter told the fighters to take positions, and now the fight will begin. However, before she could even finish, Gedem's head flew out of the arena. It was the fastest fight in history. Phil can play, but he's not going to do it with a human life. Let's return to Vatis. The prince shouted that Cantor did a great job last time, so why is he refusing now? The head of the local branch of the Ely organization responded that there are 3 reasons for this. Firstly, the princess came under an alias last time, so they were able to secretly kidnap her. But this time she's here officially, so it will be harder to do it secretly. Secondly, she is accompanied by 3 people who will be difficult to deal with. Bastard of Entis Valtis, Black Dog, by Carmen Valtis. Member of the Red Bear mercenary group, Sajida Forgon. And finally, the Destroyer of Evil, the sworn enemy of evil spirits. Priest Marnak, Vatis asks. So what, will there be problems with this? He says to give the priest and the mercenary more money, and they will also help. However, Cantor fears that Marnak cannot be bought. He is known for destroying evil. Therefore, it is hard to believe that such a person is capable of betraying the princess. In addition, there are rumors that he and Princess Daisha are in a close relationship. Prince Vatis demanded that he stop talking this nonsense, but Cantor continued. According to the informant, the princess secretly visits Marnak's room in the middle of the night, every day. Vatis, holding back his anger, asked who else knew about this. Cantor replied that only their organization. The prince orders this information to be kept secret, at any cost. Cantor said they had no intention of leaking. Now the final reason. The problem is the White Wolf, Sethian Valtus. Ela received information that he met with the princess. He will make a move if Daisha disappears, and this will provoke a reaction from the Black Wolf, Entis Valtis. No matter what the situation, the Ela Guild will not go against him. Cantor has such a hard time convincing this stupid lizard, but he has the facts on his side. Even the prince can't do anything. Cantor doesn't understand what's wrong with that crazy bastard Hilden, and what's so funny? Vadis suddenly pinned the head of the branch to the table, shouting that everyone kept repeating the name of this damn Entis. Valtis. Cantor? What, 3 years old? He refused the prince because he was afraid of one person. Vadis said to listen carefully. He can tell the queen about all his dirty deeds. For example, how they kidnapped the daughter of a great lord for money. Or they will immediately meet with this Entis Valtis, whom Ile is so afraid of. Cantor muttered that if the prince did that, he himself would be in danger. Did he really think that Vadis would be afraid of such a threat? The only dragon wizard in this world, the demonic dragon king, is his father. He'll fall at his feet a few times, and he'll be fine. The prince demands that Dacia Ermal be dragged to the dragon kingdom without hurting her, and let Ela do it by any means necessary. Liberatio. The followers of the evil spirits discussed that the butcher man was definitely targeting them. Most likely the arena's mistress asked for this. Since things turned out this way during today's battle, they will steal the sacred relic from its owner. The followers are allowed to use force, but everything must be done quickly, before the arrival of the priests and knights of the queen. At the same time, Ela was also discussing the planned operation. In 10 minutes, the arena wall would be blown up. The mercenaries' task is to find their target. They reported that everything was fine with the bomb. They even prepared spare fuses. Ila's reputation is at stake, and failure is unacceptable. They must find the target at any cost. So, a fighter nicknamed Redhead entered the arena. And his opponent is the already well-known Butcher Man. Today, an unarmed fight was planned. The presenter wanted to start, when suddenly the wall exploded from above. Cantor told his men that the princess must be somewhere here and could hide her face. He ordered everyone to find Princess Dacia and the Ely fighters scattered throughout the room. Damn! For Liberatio, everything didn't go according to plan. The commander already told his men to take advantage of the moment and find the arena's owner. The redhead looked at Marnak in panic and said that he did not understand what was happening. Carmen's cry was heard. The anti-illegal fighting squad had arrived. He ordered everyone to kneel quickly in the name of Her Majesty. The knights are going to fine all visitors to the arena. Damn, regular people are panicking. They don't understand why today. Cantor never expected the kingdom's army to arrive here. Carmen ordered the men in black to drop their weapons and kneel. Those running away must stop now. Liberatio continued to run. The commander shouted whether the idiot himself would have stopped in their place. Carmen told the knights that a couple of people would remain at the door and the rest would follow him. But then our masked hero blocked him. Phil says that now is not the time to pursue them. Those men in black masks are going to kidnap the Princess of Dacia. The knights heard it too. Those men were shouting her name. Carmen ordered everyone to scatter. Let's forget about those who ran away. Now we need to catch the people in black. If they resist, they will be killed. Carmen told Sajida to deal with everyone he saw. He threw a spear at one of the Ile, and Carmen left the knights and ran forward. Dacia hid in her room on the ground floor when suddenly the door swung open. She asked Phil what happened. He said that the followers of evil spirits were heading towards the demon, and their pursuers encountered the army of the kingdom. There is a chance that some of them were already hiding here, so Marnak and the princess need to leave. The priest held out the mask he was wearing and told Dacia to put it on. She is too noticeable. Anyone will immediately recognize the princess. Dacia obeyed, and after that they gathered to go through the emergency exit that the hostess had spoken about. An arena employee tried to stop the invasion, but he was stabbed in the forehead with a blade. Ely fighters were already in the corridor. The commander ordered to kill everyone except the princess. Phil told Dacia that it looked like they would have to break out on their own. It was better not to get surrounded, so Marnak would not use the butcher. The hero grabbed the spear and began to break through, killing the fighters in black masks one after another. Dacia also did not stand aside but used her new ring. Looking at him, the eyes of the people in black literally began to glow. The princess asked the priest if she had done everything correctly. Phil smiled and said that everything was fine. Now they could go to the emergency exit. By the way, he said that the followers of evil spirits went to the demon. Dacia asked if she would be okay. Phil said not to worry. Killing a demoness that had been in one body for so long would be very difficult. Meanwhile, the Liberatio had already reached her, but they couldn't even imagine that the owner of the arena was a demon. They could have asked her. She would have gladly told them. No attack on her worked. The commander shouts for everyone to calm down. It's still a demon. She must pay a price to show her power. He ordered 2 followers to find the sacred relic, while the rest would work on exhausting the demoness. So well informed. But they forgot one little thing. The woman knew that one day they would come to her. At one moment, the demoness's hair turned into snakes. In the underground arena, it is very easy to make such preparations. Liberacio are great guys for coming straight to the demoness's room. Now they can have some fun. Carmen is currently dealing with the men in black alone. He doesn't understand how this happened. The guy just wanted to gain practical knowledge on the advice of his brother. But the soldiers Carmen has taken with him have almost no experience. The army is suffering losses. Carmen thinks Marnak is now with Princess Dacia. Then he needs to protect his soldiers as a commander. Carmen saved the knight from the attack of the fighter, Aile, and then told him to get ready and go to the others. Carmen turned to all his soldiers and told them to stop trying to catch all the enemies. Let them return to the line and focus on defense. Carmen told one of his deputies that he was taking over command. The priority was to keep the soldiers organized. He then asked Sajida if he still had strength. He replied that of course he did. Then they will concentrate on exterminating these bastards. Isla fighters had already figured out that it was Marnak and the princess and were chasing them. It seems they had noticed them because they recognized the priest's face. One guy in black blocked the way, but Phil quickly cut him down. There were two more on the left. It was time for Dacia to show what she was capable of. The princess struck the enemies with fire, and Marnak had already finished them off with his sword. Dacia returns the mask to the priest. It is too difficult to fight in it. The guys were about to go further, but the Elec group was already visible in the distance. The fighters surrounded our heroes. Phil told Dacia to collapse the ceiling with all her might and he would protect her. The princess concentrated and blew up the wooden ceiling. The path on one side of Ela was blocked, so the heroes ran to the other. Now there was another group left. The fighters said that they didn't need Marnak and demanded to simply hand over the princess. No matter how much she promised, the Ele would give more and forget that the priest had killed their people. Phil said that the princess offered a mountain of gold equal to his weight. He asked if they would give Ele that much. The princess looked at the hero in confusion. The fighters said sure. Their client would be able to double it without any problem. Impressive. However, Phil pulled Dacia close and said he doubted their gold would smell as good as hers. Ela got angry that the bastard decided to joke. But the princess and the priest are cornered. Do they really think they can handle that many people? Phil replied that it made no difference to the cat whether there were 2 rats or 12. After these words, the commander ordered to kill the son of a bitch, and the soldiers attacked the priest. Phil finally got his hands on the butcher and started chopping up Elec left and right. The commander was the last one left. Phil said it made no difference. The demoness also has a commander of the Liberatio squad. She is disgustingly strong. The guy asks how long she lives. The woman laughed. She appeared before the birth of the first son of corruption. The guy asked what it meant, but the demoness said not to rush. Now it was his turn to answer. He's a priest of the stitching needle, right? The guy's head is in perfect order, it's probably his work. The demoness and all her snakes demand an answer. And the priest began to address the sewing needle. Are you really going to summon a piece of your god into this world? The demoness says that people try so hard these days. Exactly. And the woman thought, why collect sacred relics in which the damage is sealed? These guys are planning to bring part of the god down to earth. To upset the balance that had been maintained for so long, the demoness asked the stitching needle if she was right. The god, looming in the body of a huge monster, tells the demon to shut up. Eile members are trying to gather and attack. We need to deal with just one person. Phil told Dacia that the time had come. She was unsure, but the priest convinced her. Well, let him not forget later that he asked for it himself. With the help of fire magic, the princess burned the fighters of Ela to the ground. Finally, they broke down the wall and got out. Dacia said she didn't want to go anywhere near that place in the future. She asked if Marnak was okay. Perhaps she shouldn't have. The hero replied that he was almost healed and his hair had already grown back. Suddenly, they and the princess heard someone wheezing. In the distance, Phil saw her, the priestess Melody. The hero rushed from the spot, and Daki ordered him to stand still and do nothing, no matter what happened. Melody drew her sword and struck Marnak in the back, causing him to fall to the ground. The priestess asked if he thought he could handle her, although she held back her power. It was fate. Melody told her only student that they met again. After Shantix's death, Phil set out on a journey to find the relics of the Mother of Corruption, and eventually I found one of them. But the problem is that the relic was hidden in the Temple of the Sacred Flame. That morning, the hero sat down with his hand by the river to wash his clothes. The air was as good as ever. The hero understood that it was boring, asked his mother to show a little patience. He was looking for an opportunity to get the relic. At that point, Phil's only skill was the line that the living cannot cross. and the relic is guarded by a priestess who has already reached the level of a master. Suddenly, a girl came to the river. Phil had never seen anyone come here at this hour, and she was beautiful. Melody then timidly asked if he could help her if he had time after that, and she might offer a reward. Phil jumped up and down happily, saying he was almost done anyway. Half an hour later, the hero finished with the girl's underwear. Melody praised her for her work and asked her to bring the basket. And then Phil realized that the girl who asked him for help was the very keeper of the relic. Melody handed the hero a reward for his work and asked him to do the same next time. This is how a strange relationship began, starting with washing. Melody brought in laundry every few days, and Phil washed it for 1 silver coin. But after a few weeks, he was no longer asked for this favor. Melody sat down at the edge of the river and said she had run out of money. She spent all the money that was left by her predecessors. Now she will have to do everything herself. Phil thought for a few seconds and then said that he didn't need money. He would help. Melody asked why. The hero replied that there would be nothing to do anyway if he went straight home. The priestess never treated Marnak badly, as others did, even though he was an outsider. Considering the money he managed to receive, the service will be a trifle. Melody thought about it and said she had an idea. There was no more silver left, but she asked what Marnak thought about swordsmanship lessons. The hero was very surprised and asked what the priestess meant. Melody thought Marnak didn't want to, but he jumped up and shouted that of course he did. That would be great. The only thing the hero had was good physical abilities, but he didn't know how to fight. What a blessing to learn directly from a master. But Phil got a taste of the learning process when he got hit in the face with a stick a few times. The masters of this world in the game were high-class fighters who specialized in close combat. This level is very difficult to achieve. Masters are those who have perfected their martial arts skills, and he went beyond the limits of ordinary mortals. In the entire country, masters can be counted on the fingers, and Phil's teacher, Melody, was one of them. But her teaching methods ended with simple and primitive sparring, which was repeated over and over again. One day, Melody told the hero to come tomorrow at the same time. He can clean her house when there is no laundry. Then he asked if they were near the relic storage and asked to take a look. Melody suspected something, but Phil assured her that he was just curious about what the relic looked like. The priestess thought that there would be no problems from viewing and made an exception only that time. They walked down a long corridor. Come to think of it, Phil didn't even know what the object that contained the divinity of the mother of corruption looked like. He suddenly felt pressure and saw that very glass, that very sacred relic, for a while. That day, as always, she abruptly ended the training. That day, the priestess had to leave, and she asked to finish cleaning before her return. For the last 3 years, the hero lived with the teacher and dealt with her household affairs. Not having to worry about food and shelter is great, but it's more like a survival lesson in honing your instincts than a swordsman. Then Phil decided it was time to run. He didn't think he could learn anything more from her. The hero wanted to do the main quest and avenge Shantux, so he snuck into the vault. Phil stole the relic that contained the divinity of corruption, and he extracted it without any problems. So the hero received the giant of corruption, and the mother began to speak. Back to the present moment, Phil asked how Melody knew he was still alive. The priestess extended her hand to him and replied that she did not know. She had beaten the hero every day for 3 years, but he always regenerated, so the idea arose that Phil could grow a new head when the old one was cut off. The hero asked if this was possible. Well, he was alive, and Melody asked to find the priest, giving this drawing. Phil is shocked. Did the priestess really find him thanks to this image? But the proof of this is the priest standing before her. Melody said she didn't care what the student was like, but hurting her pride was a mistake, so they would train until he too became an expert. Phil knew it. He asked how long it would take. Melody replied that she trained without rest, every day for about 30 years. Marnak has talent, so she thinks if she tries hard she can do it in 27. By then, none of the main quests will matter. And let a genius like Melody not compare Phil to herself. Meanwhile, Carmen asked his deputy Turdy how many were left. There were 24 alive. 3 people were seriously injured, and 11 were slightly injured. We lost 16 people. My brother certainly didn't expect this. Damn. I think I should have taken 100 elite soldiers. Suddenly, the building shook. Some kind of sea creature emerged from under the rubble. It's smaller than what was in Erratic, but very similar. Carmen ordered Turdy to take the boys away, and Sajit shouted that they needed to buy some time for the soldiers to retreat. Sajita threw his blades at the monster, and then he secured it all with a precise blow from his spear. Carmen's turn. He cut horizontally through the monster's body. At that moment, the monster turned into a huge lump of heads and human flesh. Carmen told Sajita to back off. He had a bad feeling about this. Suddenly, a powerful blow of ice magic occurred. Sajita got rid of the ice on his body. climbed on top of the monster and struck with his spear. At that moment, the monster began to squeal in pain and release white threads that wrapped around all the Ela fighters. Carmen told Sajida that it was time to leave and they ran away, fearing these very threads. But at some point the monster broke the ceiling and the debris was about to fall on the guys. Carmen stopped to protect Sajida, but because of this, he was pierced by white threads. Let's get back to the hero. He wanted to answer Melody when a strong earthquake began. Phil asked the teacher if she was going to go there and check what had happened. Melody said that she saw a man on the way here. He will get there first, so she thinks there is no point in rushing. Phil asked in surprise who it was. And then the priestess said that it was a black wolf. Entis Valtis. He struck the monster that attacked his son and then cut all the strings. Entis asked if Carmen could go. And when he received a positive answer, he told his son to leave, and he himself would kill this monster. A huge snake with a demoness inside came to the scene. She demands to know where the priest hid the relic. The snake grappled with the huge lump of flesh and blood, and Entis only helped. Noticing this, the demoness screamed for the black wolf not to touch him, literally begged. Entis continued to fight, and the demoness was afraid that her thing would break. The black wolf cut the ends of the snakes and the demoness fell to the ground. If he had not intervened, she could have gotten her thing back. The woman couldn't believe that there was no choice and she would have to give in. If only the priest Marnak would help. At one point, Melody grappled with Entis. He felt an incredible life force from her. His vigilance for a second and the priestess threw him back. Entis stood up and asked the girl why she was doing this. Melody said she was curious about the worth of the best swordsman in the north. If that was the only problem, the black wolf suggested fighting later and told him to get out of the way. He has to protect the capital. Melody smiled and said that it seemed his main talent was chatter. Entis couldn't afford to ignore this, so he got back into his fighting stance and rushed into battle. The demoness stood behind the body of a huge monster and watched the incomprehensible fight between a black wolf and a certain woman. Finally, Marnak came running. He asked the woman what to do. The demoness screamed that this monster had stolen the sacred relic and hidden it inside the body, and one thing that was left from her daughter. The woman is asking very much to find it. Phil feels that different types of divinity have become mixed up. He began to chop down the monster, of course, and said that the relic would be difficult to find. The demoness screams that he can handle it and she believes in him. Suddenly, the mother of corruption appeared, looked seriously at Phil and said something to him. She can find the relic while she's in this form, but that's too dangerous. The girl said something again. Well, Mother doesn't leave Phil a choice. But if it becomes even more dangerous, the hero tells her to immediately return to her hand. The demoness screams that she will help. She began to wrap her long tails around the monster's body. And then, I recorded it for Marnak's convenience. He climbed up and told his mother to hold on tight. It was going to shake a little. Dozens of dead bodies emerged from the monster. Phil read the text of the curse and all of them were torn to shreds. Mother pointed to the side. The relic is over there, on top of the monster. Phil is so happy, he wants to kiss his mother on the forehead. But you have to be patient. The hero grabbed the sword and finished off the last dead man. Finally, he climbed up the monster. The relic was near the cut on the neck. Great, now the demoness will chew everything except the neck. The guy is an ordinary person who serves a dumb loser from heaven, but still dared to look down on the demoness. Mother showed Phil the exact spot to hit. Finally, he took out a small chest. Dead hands don't appear nearby. I wonder if it's because of the relic or is there another reason? Mother says they don't have time. Phil waved at the demoness and said he found it. She started to thank me and told me to get down from there. The hero asked his mother to return to his hand. The demoness looked up at the sky and addressed the stitching needle, the bastard that lurked in the heavens. As long as there was a drop of life left in this body, she would not forgive him or his believers. He would pay for what he had done today. The cries of the royal army were heard nearby. Phil quickly hid. Damn, the soldiers are already here. Meanwhile, Melody was actively holding back Entis's blows. But suddenly she looked to the side and stepped back. The black wolf asked what she was trying to do. Melody told him to just do what he was going to do. The reason for her attack just escaped. Entis was silent for a second, and then said that the girl would be held responsible for this. Melody smiled and replied that she didn't think she could lose to him. Just then, a subordinate brought Entis a molar. The black wolf ordered the priestess to be arrested as politely as possible. She is a master, so let the soldier not think of provoking her. The boy approached Melody and said that she had obstructed the course of justice and posed a threat to the kingdom. So the soldier took out handcuffs and asked for cooperation. Melody said to wait and reached into her robe for something. She took out a piece of paper, handed it to the guy and told him to look at it. I unfolded the piece of paper and he was simply horrified. Oh, Melody apologized. She accidentally gave out a portrait of her student. Cute, right? The guy didn't even realize at first that there was a person drawn there. Melody took the piece of paper out of her pocket again and said that this one should be correct. It was a letter of complete immunity for the owner. No matter what the owner of this document did, the kingdom would not hold her accountable. The soldier asked if it was a real document. Melody replied that she wouldn't show it. It even had a stamp on it. The guy asked where she got it. I need to think. It seems Melody killed an evil spirit follower many years ago and received the paper from the king. He said she was the savior of the kingdom. Melody didn't think she would go that far. Well, now she's free. She still needs to look in one place. Phil ran away when suddenly the demoness, who had returned to her normal form, attacked him. She began to hug and thank the priest. She even reached for his face. But at that moment, Mother appeared and pushed them away from each other. But the demoness was so happy that she hugged her mother and began to thank her. After some time, the mother of corruption sat in the room covered in kisses. The demoness prepared hot tea for them. It will be very tasty with cookies. Phil took a bite, but as he thought, he felt nothing. But as soon as Mother tried it, she almost flew away with happiness. She said the taste was amazing. Phil was a little late in returning, but he still handed over the box. The demoness thanked him, even though she had already repeated it many times. The hero asked where her daughter was now, but the woman said that she had died a long time ago. Oh, the demoness said not to worry about it. The daughter lived during the ancient empire. It would be strange if I still stayed with my mother. Phil asked about the husband, but the woman didn't have one. When the demoness took possession of this body, she was already pregnant. The woman opened the chest and said that she would only show it to our heroes. There was a framed drawing and various children's things lying there. Usually they try not to have children in the body they have taken over. The goal is to enjoy this world and leave. Because with the child comes a strong attachment to him, and affection quickly turns into sadness. Demons often try to avoid regrets that will bring sadness, so they do not stay in one body for long. Then why did the demoness give birth to a child? Her name says it all. She was curious. All demons do this at least once, and so she was able to bring her beautiful Xylon into this world. By the way, about the sword that Phil showed us at our first meeting, the one with the strange teeth. The hero asked what was wrong with him. The woman did not want to tell because it could seem like bragging, but her daughter did it. Phil's eyes were like 5 kopecks after that. The woman asked me to pass on this. She will show you something interesting. Phil placed the sword on the table, and the demoness began to read the spell. The message, dedicated to my beloved mother Elisha, appeared. The 6th creation of Cylon, the greatest craftswoman of the Empire. Look, the demoness said so. Phil asked if the sword had any other hidden functions. Elisha didn't know. Considering it was done by her daughter, it may be related to her other works. Cylon has always loved transformations. Other things are treasure for Elisha, but Phil says not to ask for the sword. Naturally, the demoness only cares about what her daughter gave her herself. These items are collected in the hope that they will be used. Elisha has no use for them. They will only take up space because she is afraid of breaking them. The demoness knows better than anyone that this is not what Xylon would like. Suddenly, Phil's mother tugged at his sleeve. Elisha asked if she needed anything. Mother asks for more cookies. The demoness said that in the kitchen, the second drawer on the left, full to the brim. The girl can eat anything, she's so cute. In any case, Elisha still couldn't figure out how to thank Marnak. She asks if he wants to do anything while the mother of the curse is gone. She promises a treat. He'll definitely like it. The hero thanked her for the offer, but was forced to decline, and asked her never to say such a thing in front of her mother. Oh, what a pity. Elisha said to let me know right away if the hero changes his mind. Last time she made a joke, but not this time. What should she reward her with then? The demoness wonders if she has anything valuable. At that moment, the mother threw down the plate of cookies and screamed. She says you can give as many gold coins as cookies. Elisha likes her pragmatism, but there is a problem. It will take a lot of money to restore the demoness's eyes and the underground arena. She wouldn't want to thank her savior with coins. They disappear too quickly and easily. Something special would do. At first, Elisha thought about going with Marnak, but she is not very interested in participating in battles. She is sure that the path of the son of corruption will go through rivers of blood. Elisha suddenly remembered that there was something. She took the chest and asked to wait here. Mother told Phil to ask for cookies to be packed. Finally, the demoness found it. She put the bag on the table. The woman was waiting for the opportunity to sell it to the right person, but she would rather give it to Marnak. Phil opened the bag and found the key to the ancient ruins. Elisha likes his intelligence. She thinks this reward is enough. Moreover, in those ruins there is another creation of her daughter. Before leaving, Elisha gave Phil some cookies. She added something to them. The hero thanked her. The hand of the mother of corruption came out and Marnak said that she also thanked the demoness. So Phil asked when they could meet again. Elisha replied that they had gotten a little carried away playing and one eye was not working, so she will have to leave the capital. Then Phil suggests saying goodbye. Suddenly, Elisha said to take care of her. Marnak is doing well. Nothing else needs to be done. Let it just remain as it is so that the mother of corruption can smile. The hero smiled and said that he had intended to do so. He didn't have to ask. Elisha thinks that the item in the ruins must be useful to the priest. In this case, the mother of corruption will return all divinity. The heavenly gods and the one who wanted to take away the gift of Xylon, the stitching needle, they will pay for everything. Phil returned to Dacia and said that all issues were resolved. He asked if Master Melody had been looking for him. That's right, that teacher. The princess replied that she wasn't looking. The only message was from Carmen. Sajida now. Phil asked what condition they were in. Dacia replied that there were no fatal wounds, but the treatment was not easy. Well, since they're here, Phil will take a look at their wounds himself. Entering inside, the hero saw a rosy-cheeked Carmen with Aram. The guy was glad to see the two. Sounds healthy. Carmen laughed. You can't get upset over such trivial wounds. It could bring shame to the Valtis family. A few broken bones and bruises. Thinks a restoration priest could handle that. But Carmen said the problem was Sajid. He was fighting too. The guy smiled and said that everything was fine. If the priest of restoration healed him, he would quickly get back on his feet. Phil walked up to Sajida and told her to show him her ankle. That's what the hero thought. The divinity of several evil gods mixed, so it would be difficult for the priest to cure it completely. The hero asked the mother of corruption if she could do anything. Wants to say that the problem can be solved if they absorb the divinity of the relic they received. But here they will feel it right away. It won't work in the capital. Looks like I'll have to head into the ruins. They are in an isolated space, so no one from outside will notice anything. Suddenly, Carmen said not to worry. According to the priest, the divinity of the evil gods weakens over time. But he said it wouldn't happen very quickly. Phil asked how long he would have to wait. Carmen replied that at least a few months, maximum a few years, if you remove it naturally. Aram added that this is only in the case of Carmen, and Sajida will have to wait even longer. But they are looking for a way to neutralize the divinity of the evil gods, so they will succeed sooner. Carmen apologized for what had happened, but it would be difficult for them to continue accompanying the princess. Dacia asked not to worry and told her to concentrate on her treatment. She would be fine. Then Phil told the boys that he and the princess would leave the capital for a few days. He had an idea on how to help them. Dacia mentally asked how to understand this, and the hero mentally answered her that he would tell her later. Carmen said that Marnak is the best. Although he does not want to bother the priest, he will wait for him with impatience. Phil smiled and said to put it on it. By the way, Carmen needs to talk to our hero alone. He winked at Aram. After that, she took Dacia and they went out the door. Carmen guarantees that Marnak will not find a girl with a bigger heart than the princess of Dacia, so she advises him to take advantage of the moment. The guy thinks that she likes the priest. Suddenly, Sajida interrupted, adding in bewilderment that he thought that Marnak and Dacia had been together for a long time. To the cries of the mother of corruption, Phil replied that there was nothing between him and the princess. The boys are always with Marnak. What should he explain to them? If so, Carmen told Phil not to miss the chance. Another one might not come along anytime soon. Repeats the same thing. The hero told the guys to take care of themselves and left. Oh, Dacia is so excited. She's not sure if two people can go to such places together, but as long as Marnak is around, everything will be fine. Suddenly, they saw Melody at the table in the house. Marnak had been gone for a long time. The master was waiting for the student to return. Melody pointed to the place next to her and told him to sit here. However, Phil sat down opposite Dacia, which confused Melody a little. She arrived later than he thought. The priestess replied that she had to go to the palace. The queen of the northern kingdom had a request. It seems that the followers of evil gods are rampaging north of the capital. The queen asked politely, so Melody agreed to help. And if Phil wants to go with her to Eagler, the teacher told him to go to his room and pack his things. However, the hero answered her that it was impossible. Melody clearly did not expect such a categorical answer. Phil added that his goal was in the opposite direction, and he had important business. Melody asked what he was talking about. She had gone through so much hardship and shame to fulfill the request of her only student, and he was leaving? Melody asked if she had heard correctly. Phil replied that she had heard correctly. This is too cruel. Melody's eyes filled with tears and she asked how Marnak could do this to her. Does he even know what path she took to meet her student? Phil asked her to stop. He won't buy it anymore. The girl fakes crying perfectly. Damn, Melody thought, at least that would work. She began to say that the girl's tears were her weapon, and she reached for the sword. Phil yelled sharply at Melody to put her hands on the table. If she's going to knock him out and drag him away, he's going to be really angry. Melody threw away her sword and asked why Marnak thought she would resort to such cruelty. The hero is sure she thought about it. Phil said that everything he said was true. Now he can't go with the master. Therefore, when he finishes all his current affairs, he will return to her himself. Melody thought about it and then agreed because she was a compassionate and sweet teacher. Phil asked in surprise if he would have to go with her. Melody replied that she planned to wait for him, but only if he is strong enough not to get beaten. The backyard of the inn is quite large. Melody told Marnak to take the sword and follow her, and she told me to do it right now. Stepping out into the courtyard, Melody said the terms were simple. She would use as much force as Marnak, so he has to give it his all. It will be more difficult to move if the hero drags the butcher, so he took a regular sword. Now Melody started to speak when suddenly she attacked. After such a blow, she punches the chin. Melody motioned for Marnak to come forward. He swung his sword, but the priestess parried each blow. But then it hit, and the sword flew out of the hero's hands. The priestess asked the student what aspect is the most important for those who want to become a master. Phil guessed it was swordsmanship honed to the limit and a trained body. Melody said that these were the basic conditions, and then, like in the good old days, she slapped Marnak in the face. If that were enough, she would become a master in 5 years. Phil stood up and said that Melody was sometimes too arrogant. She believed, but there was nothing she could do. True, but there's nothing to be done. After Melody said that the most important thing is the heart, Phil was very surprised. Suddenly, the master said that Marnak's confused face was very cute. The hero simply asked for an explanation. So the master can direct his will into the sword. And then it is possible to cut even what was previously impossible. To become one, Phil needs to make his heart independent of others. But he relies on someone very much. Melody asked what he was so dependent on. The hero cannot answer. He cannot say that he is a priest of the goddess of evil. Every time Phil is resurrected, their connection deepens further. Dear, the only student. Apparently, he understands what Melody is talking about. Phil replied that yes. The girl was glad that they met again, but her heart turns cold when their swords touch. The hero asked if it was because he was far from the heights of mastery. Melody said no. It's about a mother's heart, I guess. It feels like she spent all her energy raising her son, who was taken away by some snake. It's like Marnak was stolen from her. What a specific remark. You rarely hear that from Melody. That's why she's upset. The dependence is so deep that Marnak will hate it if he tries to break it by force. Melody doesn't want it, so she won't force him. But she told him to keep the item to himself. The girl handed him a relic from the Church of the Holy Flame. A person with a black ring can roughly determine where a person with a white ring is. Phil put it on and said he would wear it. He also asked to ask the teacher one question: how Melody can be both a master and a priestess. The girl replied that one does not become a priestess because of the depth of one's faith. Rather, God himself chooses you for this position. Even masters regard God as an object. They are not blind to their emotions and are not influenced by them too much. This is why Melody continues to consider Marnak her disciple, despite the evil divinity he exudes. She offers him to become a master for a reason. If the hero succeeds, he will be able to distinguish his own emotions from the alien emotions of the god that has taken up residence within him. So Melody knew that Marnak was a servant of an evil god, and even that he was dependent on him. Don't think Melody is stupid. Phil asked for one more question. Why did he become her student if there were more talented people who were better suited? Melody expected a difficult question when the hero began to doubt so much. But it turned out to be simple. The girl was raised with the sword of the Church of the Holy Flame from birth. Before she knew it, she was left completely alone. And then I met Marnak by that river. The 3 years they spent together were the happiest of her life. The only thing that could surpass this happiness was the feeling of loss from his departure. Melody can no longer be who she was before she met Marnak. She needs him. He is important to her. After all, only with him can a girl be happy. Hilden was furious. He says that the Ila headquarters was destroyed because they did not catch the princess and it was not his fault. But the fighters shout that it was all his fault and were preparing to kill the traitor. Hilden began to run away as fast as he could, simultaneously dodging arrows. He cries in tears that he is ready to kiss the ass of whoever saves him. And suddenly there is a strong explosion behind him. It was Prince Vadis. Hilden asks if the boy has come to save him. What do you think? Not for a picnic, surely. Vadis tells you to shut up and follow him. He'll leave Hilden if you fall behind. The man takes back his words about the dumb lizard. Glory to the prince. And if Hilden thinks about kissing his ass, Vadis will finish him off. Meanwhile, the heroes reach the ruins, the coordinates point here. It took 5 days to get there, but there might be mountain bandits at the entrance. Possibly, but Phil isn't sure. Dacia suggested distracting them with fire, but the hero asked if she really wanted to set the entire forest on fire. First, he will try to talk to them and ask the princess to prepare magic. As Phil began to approach the entrance, two men immediately stopped him and asked who he was. The hero smiled and introduced himself as a support priest. He said he had been asked to deal with the mountain bandits in the area. The man demanded that all weapons be surrendered if the priest wanted to pass. But Phil replied that he could not until he was convinced that they were not bandits. Then the man said to get lost. The mother of corruption shows the power of 3 fingers. Phil immediately realized that he was dealing with a magician. He hit the nail on the head. And then he asked to call someone with whom he could negotiate. The man got angry that since he was a magician, he was considered an idiot. He attacked the hero. But Phil pushed him away with a slight movement and said that he had not said such a thing. Suddenly, it started to rain. Dacia screamed that she would strike with lightning anyone who came near. Oh, she didn't make it. Phil knocked that guy out. The princess asked if they weren't going to fight the others. It seemed they had a misunderstanding. Suddenly, a woman came out into the street. She was happy about the rain and told us to collect rainwater. However, upon seeing our heroes, she stopped abruptly and asked who they were. The hero introduced himself as Marnak, who serves the goddess of support. And next to her was Dacia Ermal, the daughter of Lord the Smiling One. The woman greeted Her Highness. She herself is the head of the archaeological group of the Kingdom of Fosarina. It is an honor to meet the princess. Fosarina says that their mage is not very good at water magic, so she is grateful that our heroes helped with this. Dacia is glad to be of use. The woman asked for forgiveness for the bastard Tran. I would have fired him long ago if he didn't have magic. But still, Fosarina asked what the guys were doing here. The site of the ruins excavations is kept in the strictest confidence. Phil said they found them because they followed the coordinates on the key. Fosarina smiled and asked if she could go inside the ruins with them. Phil doesn't think that's possible. Oh, the woman didn't mean that right away. After the boys have sorted out their affairs, she would like to visit them. Phil thought while Fosarina pleaded with him. She asked how much knowledge he had about the ancient ruins. The hero replied that he knew no more than ordinary people. Fosarina said that the ruins of the ancient empire are divided into 2 categories. Those that are hidden in isolated spaces and can only be opened with a key, and those that are buried underground. The target of her archaeological team is the 2nd category of ruins. That is, they are trying to dig up the ruins that are hidden here. What a perceptive priest. Yes, the group is trying to find a connection between the 2 types of ruins and is not interested in the items hidden in them. Then Phil agreed to let Fosarina in. She began to thank the priest. But the hero said that he and the princess would probably be exhausted when they got out, so he asked to use their place to rest. The woman happily agreed. As for the number of people who would come in with her, Phil asked if more would come from headquarters. Fosarina said not to worry. The whole team was already gathered here. The hero was surprised and asked if there weren't too few of them. The woman said that their organization doesn't bring in much money. Underground ruins are often in poor condition. Sometimes no artifacts can be found. Okay, Phil said that such a group would not be a problem. Dacia approached the entrance to the ruins and used the key. The heroes have entered a beautiful place. The view is great, but it's time for them to get down to business. Phil took out the previous relic and asked the Mother of Corruption for new power. Finally, the hero has received a powerful attack ability. In front of him is the former new weapon. It is a sword of corruption that infects everything it touches. However, after taking the sword for literally a couple of seconds, Phil lost his hand. If the effect works even on him, then how to use it? Dacia asks if Phil's arm is okay. He tells her not to worry, it will heal soon. Suddenly, the Mother of Corruption appeared and clung tightly to the hero. She had grown so much. Mother asks if his arm hurts. Phil replies that it is fine. The princess had an idea. Why shouldn't the Mother of Corruption take this sword? Her hands won't start to rot and she's got plenty of dexterity. Phil is worried that his mother might get hurt, but she insists. Then the hero suggested first checking if she could use it. Phil took out the sword of corruption, Mother took it, but her hand also began to rot. She fell to the ground and burst into tears of pain. The hero told his mother not to blame herself. He promised to protect her. Dacia says it's strange. Why can the Mother of Corruption be hurt by her own power? Mother got angry at the princess and screamed. Phil thinks it's because she didn't get all her divinity back. By the way, the Mother of Corruption was able to pronounce a new word, you. Now there are 3 whole words in Mother's vocabulary. Phil told her not to worry. Her mere presence gave him strength. Dacia interrupted them abruptly and asked if the hands were healed yet. If so, the princess suggested going inside. The Mother of Corruption, at Phil's request, summoned the Giant of Corruption. Long time no see. The hero asked the giant to take the sword for a second. The giant did it. but literally a couple of seconds later his hand fell off. Even he can't hold it. Phil apologized and said it was time to head into the ruins. The giant walked ahead. Daisha asked what they would do. Phil suggested simply watching. They don't have a man who can detect the traps. Better to let the giant destroy everything in his path. But the giant was blocked by 2 stone monsters. Daisha suggested using magic, but spells are ineffective against these giants. The giant of corruption remembered how one of the last times these stone monsters beat him up. Then he became furious and began to crush them with even greater force. It was not for nothing that he was strengthened. Suddenly, the mother of corruption approached Phil and took a sphere out of his pocket. This time she managed to break it in half. Now Phil can call her a goddess without any qualms. Mother was able to untangle the mixed divinity. The very magnificence Phil was twirling his mother. Daisha said they got along so well. The princess asks if she will be able to get along with Marnik like that one day. The hero thought that they already get along. Is this really just his opinion? Daisha became embarrassed. It is enough to pronounce the name for Daisha to understand what kind of support is required from her in battle. Finally, the giant has finished with the monsters. Phil uses divinity to enhance one of the necessary skills. The sword of corruption will have to be put aside for emergency situations. It is difficult to use. Phil said they were moving on and asked the mother of corruption to return to his hand. Inside, the heroes were stopped by a huge yellow robot. This is very dangerous, so while the giant of corruption was sorting things out, Phil quickly picked up Daisha in his arms. However, there wasn't even a scratch on the robot. Phil quickly read the text of the curse and told the princess to hold on tight. He will run at full speed. Daisha asked if they could really leave the giant to deal with this alone. Phil replied that everything would be fine. He would return himself when he had bought the boys enough time. Phil and Daisha ran to something that looked like a door. However, when they opened it, they found a dozen mini-robots in front of them. Not a moment's respite. Phil drew his sword, and Daki said that the right flank was on her. After a couple of minutes, the guys managed. The hero praised the princess and asked if she needed a rest. But before she could answer, the yellow robot came closer and prepared his machine gun. Phil quickly grabbed Daisha and they hid behind his back from dozens of bullets. The robot ran out of ammo. The hero said it was time to run. However, at some point, the bullets began to return back to the machine gun in the robot's hand. Phil asked Daisha to hit this giant machine with her magic, explosive spell. But not now, but when the robot is ready to shoot. Phil gave the signal and Daisha attacked the robot with a blast storm. The bullets that were above them exploded. Daisha said to trust her. She hit the robot a few more times. The princess is running out of mana. The boys have reached the next door. Phil tried to kick it open in a hurry, but it didn't work. However, the hero thinks that this is the right door. He asks Daisha to cover him while he checks. There's little time. That yellow robot will catch up soon. Phil took out his butcher knife and started to fire multiple shots at the goal. However, only scratches remained on the doors, which immediately disappeared. And then a message appeared that the tricks would not work. Do I have to destroy that machine? Phil asks Daisha to do as he says. This will be the last time. She needed to hold out a little longer. The robot tried to collect the ammo again, but Daisha set off an explosion at the right moment. There will be no more spells. She's running out. There was no time, so Phil, without thinking, grabbed the sword of corruption, jumped up, and hit the robot. Things are bad. The hero is falling apart too quickly. Phil took the sword in his other hand, but can no longer hold the text of the corruption. And suddenly, at some point, when the hero fell without strength, the mother of corruption quickly grabbed the sword and continued the attack. Eventually, fortunately, the yellow robot began to dissolve. Phil fell to the ground without limbs, and the mother of corruption tried with all her might to grab his hand. After some time, he woke up. What a relief that his mother was okay. She carried him and Daisha. Phil can't imagine his life without her help. Mother said that she was incredibly cool. Without her, the guys definitely wouldn't have defeated that giant. Finally, Daisha also woke up. At first, she didn't even believe that she wasn't dead. Phil helped her up. Yes, the rest had done the princess good, but she didn't understand where they were. Phil replied that they were at their destination. The gate asked what would be beautiful forever. Daisha was confused. It seemed like some kind of riddle. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Phil said the answer. Alicia and the gates swung open. The best blacksmith of the empire appeared before them. Her name is Cylon. Well, to be more precise, it is only a hologram. First a robot with a Gatling gun, and now an AI hologram? What kind of country was the empire? A few seconds later, Cylon repeated the same text. This is happening because the guys are still standing here. Phil suggested going inside. Then the blacksmith said that they were able to get through her guards. Impressive. Daisha asked Marnik how he knew the answer to the question. Why her mother's name? Xylon said it was such a stupid question, it was obvious. The guests entered with a key that belonged to her, so they should at least know her name. Otherwise, Zealon has no reason to leave them alive. A mistake would have led to big trouble. In any case, the visitors had a hard time. So they can rest in the house that appears before them at that very moment. Daisha said the baths here were wonderful. It was as if all the tiredness had been washed away. Phil agreed. He asked if everything had gone well. The princess replied that it had, although there were things she was seeing for the first time. But the instructions in the ancient language are quite detailed. Even the clothes were washed while Daisha was washing herself. He thinks that the resentment towards Cylon has been cut in half. Suddenly, the girl herself appeared with a question about whether they had a good rest. Xylon brought the things that the guests had left along the way. She handed Phil that black ring. Everything that was broken was now fixed. The hero thought he had lost the ring along with his hand. It seemed that I would be able to avoid the wrath of Melody's teacher. Xylon said to follow her. She will give the thing that the guests are looking for. The girl led them into a luxurious hall. It was amazing that such huge rooms existed underground. So, Cylon asked which of the two wanted to receive the item. Suddenly, the mother of corruption appeared and pointed at herself. Okay, Cylon asked which of the three. Phil stepped forward and said it would be him. Great, but Cylon will not disappoint too, so he will not let them go empty-handed. They will get something else. The hologram split into three and told each of the three people to follow it. Philo Cylon showed her latest work, number 1, and told me to wear it on my dominant hand. As soon as the hero brought the bracelet to his hand, he immediately chose the size himself. Suddenly, some symbols appeared on the bracelet. Cylon said not to be scared. It was just user registration. Now she said to shout activation and then press the button. Seeing Phil's confusion, she said that shouting was a must. Having done this, the bracelet turned into a glove that wrapped around the hero's hand, and then itself became a new limb. Cylon laughed almost to tears, so he went and screamed. It's enough to just press the button. Okay, the girl apologized for making such a joke and decided to continue the explanation.